Chapter 2459. Wang Ming ruthlessly humiliated Chen Wuxue, then turned around and left. Today, Wang Ming wanted to show Xiao Chen how he had abused Chen Wuxue in front of him. No one in the Chen family dared to stop Wang Ming. On the other side, the Xiao family welcomed Elder Di Mingjing from the Zhu Mountain sect. The Zhu Mountain sect elder's personal visit made everyone in the Xiao family feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy, especially the head of the family, Xiao Qing, who knew that the Zhu Mountain sect didn't come with good intentions. The Xiao family and the Zhu Mountain sect didn't have a deep relationship, or rather, the Zhu Mountain sect didn't care about the Xiao family at all. Xiao Qing had also heard about the matter between Xiao Chen and Wang Ming a month ago, and knew that there was enmity between Xiao Chen and Wang Ming. Now that the Zhu Mountain sect elder had come personally, it definitely wasn't anything good. In the main hall, Xiao Qing looked at the Zhu Mountain sect elder with a grave expression. "May I ask why elder is here?" "It's nothing, we just want to invite your Xiao family to attend our young sect master's wedding, and also ask your Xiao family's young master, Xiao Chen, to come out," the elder said indifferently. Wang Ming had ordered that no one from the Xiao family could be killed for the time being, so the elder didn't directly make a move. Hearing this, Xiao Qing's expression turned completely ugly. Inviting the Xiao family to attend Wang Ming's wedding, could it be so simple? Obviously not. Given the enmity between Xiao Chen and Wang Ming was only doing this to humiliate the Xiao family. Xiao Qing's expression was ugly, but did he have the right to refuse? Obviously not. In front of the Zhu Mountain sect, the Xiao family was indeed too weak. Just this Zhu Mountain sect elder in front of him wasn't someone the Xiao family could contend with. In the entire Xiao family, there was no Di Mingjing, and Xiao Qing, who had the highest cultivation, was only at the Mystic and Great Perfection stage. Seeing that Xiao Qing didn't answer for a long time, the elder sneered and said, "What, didn't you hear what I said? Or do you want me to personally bring out your Xiao family's young master, Xiao Chen?" His tone was filled with mockery. In his eyes, the Xiao clan was just an ant that he could trample on easily. The Xiao clan did not have the ability to reject his words. The Zhu Mountain sect's revenge came quickly, but Xiao Qing was powerless against it. Not only Xiao Qing, but everyone in the Xiao clan was the same. Clenching his teeth, Xiao Qing also cupped his hands and bowed to the elder. "My Xiao clan has no intention of offending the Zhu Mountain sect. My Xiao clan is also willing to compensate for the previous matter. I hope that elder can be lenient." He could only admit defeat when he was weaker. However, the elder sneered when he heard Xiao Qing's words. "Compensation? What can your Xiao clan compensate? Moreover, my Zhu Mountain sect doesn't lack this bit of compensation from your Xiao clan. Alright, enough nonsense. Tell your Xiao clan's young master to come out. Otherwise, this old man will do it myself." The compensation from the Xiao family was nothing in the eyes of this elder. What a joke! Did the Zhu Mountain sect lack this bit of compensation? Besides, if they directly destroyed the Xiao clan in the future, wouldn't everything in the Xiao clan still belong to the Zhu Mountain sect? Why would they need this compensation? If the Zhu Mountain sect really wanted to do something to the Xiao clan, they didn't need any reason at all. They could just find an excuse to destroy the Xiao clan. This elder was determined to take away Xiao Chen, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruyue. This was Wang Ming's request, and there was no room for negotiation. Seeing that Xiao Qing still didn't answer for a long time, the elder gradually lost his patience. He struck out with his palm and immediately knocked Xiao Qing to the ground. Earth mirror cultivators could already release spirit energy. Faced with this elder's attack, Xiao Qing had no ability to resist at all. Blood flowed from the corner of Xiao Qing's mouth as the blood in his body surged. The palm strike just now had seriously injured Xiao Qing. The difference between the Earth Mirror and the Mystic Origin Realm was too great, so Xiao Qing had no ability to resist at all. After injuring Xiao Qing with one palm strike, the elder said coldly, "Ask your Xiao clan's young master to come out. My patience is limited." Taking away Xiao Chen's family was this elder's mission. Faced with this elder's tyranny, no one in the Xiao clan dared to object. Xiao Qing gritted his teeth. It was absolutely impossible for him to hand over Xiaochen. Xiaochen was his only son, and Xiaoqing definitely wouldn't hand him over. Furthermore, once Xiaochen went to the Qin clan, everything pointed to disaster. Forcefully suppressing the blood in his body, Xiaoqing looked at the elder without saying a word. Seeing this, the elder's eyes turned cold. He was about to strike again, but at this time, a cold shout came from the door. "Stop!" Following the voice, Xiaochen walked into the hall. Seeing Xiaochen, Xiaoqing's expression changed, but the elder smiled and said, "You are Xiaochen?" Ignoring the elder's question, Xiaochen's gaze fell directly on Xiaoqing. Seeing Xiaoqing vomit blood, Xiaochen's expression instantly turned cold. Although he knew that everything in front of him was fake, Xiaochen couldn't help but feel a trace of anger in his heart when he saw his father vomit blood. Seeing that Xiaochen completely ignored him, the elder sneered. "You have some temper, but your strength is too weak." Saying this, without waiting for Xiaochen's reply, the elder directly reached out to grab Xiaochen. Facing this elder's attack, Xiaochen reacted immediately. However, at this time, Xiaochen's cultivation was only at the Yellow Realm. Facing this elder from the Ju Mountain sect who was 2 realms higher than him, he could only rely on his fighting will. In terms of strength and speed, the two of them were incomparable. Therefore, even though Xiaochen's reaction was not slow, he was still directly caught by the elder. Then, with a violent force, Xiaochen was directly slapped to the ground, just like Xiaoqing. He had no strength to fight back. After Xiaochen fell to the ground, the elder viciously stepped on Xiaochen's face. He couldn't remember how many years it had been since he had suffered such humiliation. If Xiaochen could recover his strength, this elder in front of him would be a nonentity. Xiaochen could crush him with one finger. Unfortunately, in the dreamland, Xiaochen's strength was only at the Yellow Realm, not at the half-sovereign level. Stepping on Xiaochen viciously, the elder sneered. "Boy, your temper also needs to match your strength. Do you think that you are so great just because you are the #1 genius of Lingshan Commandery? In the eyes of the Ju Mountain sect, a mere #1 genius of Lingshan Commandery is nothing. In your Xiao clan, if I slaughter your entire clan now, who would dare to say no?" Just like this, saying this, the elder pointed out a finger. Suddenly, spiritual power burst out and directly penetrated Xiaoqing's thigh. For a moment, blood flowed out like a fountain. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2460. Xiaochen's eyes turned red when he saw that Xiaoqing had been injured by the elder. Even though he knew that everything in front of him was an illusion, Xiaochen still couldn't help but be furious. Xiaochen's eyes turned red when he saw that Xiaoqing had been injured by the elder. Even though he knew that everything in front of him was an illusion, Xiaochen still couldn't help but be furious. However, even though he was angry, there was nothing he could do. His cultivation was only in the Yellow Realm, so he was no match for the elder of the Ju Mountain sect. He struggled to break free from the Ju Mountain sect elder's control, but the elder merely sneered and said, "What? You're not willing to accept this? Unfortunately, you can't do anything to me." With that, the elder exerted more force with his foot and stomped down hard on Xiaochen's face. He couldn't remember how many years it had been since he had felt so powerless. This feeling was like when he had faced the will of the heavenly way in the 7th world. He had watched helplessly as Lu Bingning and the other girls were killed. This feeling was unforgettable. At the same time, the elder's gaze swept over the rest of the Xiao clan. The smile on his face didn't fade as he said, "The young master said that it would be enough to spare your lives. Since that's the case, the rest of the Xiao clan doesn't need to live." Wang Ming had only said that he would spare Xiaochen's family for the time being. As for the rest of the Xiao clan, Wang Ming didn't say much. As soon as he finished speaking, the elder directly attacked and killed an elder of the Xiao clan on the spot. In front of Elder Di Mingjing, the Xiao clan didn't have the slightest ability to fight back. This was the difference in strength. The other party was only one person, but for the Xiao clan, he was like a mountain that was difficult to contend with. He didn't show mercy to the rest of the Xiao clan at all. Not long after, everyone in the hall was killed, leaving only Xiao Chen and Xiao Qing. After witnessing the scene of the Xiao clan being killed, Xiao Chen's eyes were already red. The murderous intent in his eyes was almost tangible. He struggled with all his might, but it was a pity that it was useless in the end. On this day, the Xiao clan was met with a disaster. An elder Di Mingjing from the Zhu Mountains sect killed his way into the Xiao clan and killed everyone in the Xiao clan. In the end, only Xiao, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruyue were left alive among the 3 clans of Lingshan County. And even the guards and maids. However, no one in Lingshan County City dared to meddle in the affairs of the Xiao clan. Although the city governor's mansion had a rule in Lingshan Prefecture City that forbade violence in the city, let alone massacring an entire clan, the Zhu Mountains sect was clearly not within the restrictions of the rules. Therefore, when this elder massacred the entire Xiao clan, the city governor's mansion of Lingshan Prefecture City did not react at all. It was as if they did not even see it. Everyone knew that the Xiao clan was completely finished. At the same time, Xiao Chen's family of 3 was brought to the backyard of the Chen residence, where Chen Muxue lived. Here, Xiao Chen saw Chen Muxue and Wang Ming. When they met again, Wang Ming looked at Xiao Chen, whose eyes were red, his teeth clenched, and his face full of indignation and anger. Wang Ming smiled complacently. "Xiao Chen, you didn't expect this day to come, did you?" Hearing Wang Ming's words, Xiao Chen looked at Wang Ming coldly without saying a word. In the face of Wang Ming's smug face, Xiao Chen's only thought was to kill him. No, just killing him would be letting him off too easily. Xiao Chen also wanted to let him know what it meant to be powerless and hopeless. Xiao Chen didn't say anything, but his cold eyes already showed the murderous intent in his heart. Wang Ming didn't care about this at all. Instead, he went to Chen Mushue's side and gently lifted her cheek. "Xiao Chen, how do you think you'll feel if you watch me ravage Chen Muxue in front of you? But I think it'll be very satisfying." Hearing this, Xiao Chen still didn't reply. At this moment, Wang Ming also directly chose to attack. Just as he had always wanted, he wanted to ravage Chen Muxue in front of Xiao Chen. The Chen Muxue in the illusion was completely different from the one in his memory. In Wang Ming's hands, Chen Muxue didn't have the slightest ability to resist, nor was she able to stop Wang Ming. Tears continuously flowed from Chen Mushue's eyes. She wanted to die, but she couldn't do it. She didn't dare to look at Xiao Chen at all, as if she didn't have the face to face Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen witnessed everything with his own eyes, but he couldn't stop it at all. After an hour, Wang Ming kicked Chen Muxue away, then went in front of Xiao Chen and sneered. "Now, do you still think you're the #1 genius in Lingshan County City? Xiao Chen, in my eyes, everything you have can't even withstand a single blow. One word from me and you'll never be able to make a comeback." After saying this, Wang Ming turned around and went in front of Bai Ruyue, a long sword appearing in his hand. Looking at the long sword in Wang Ming's hand that kept stabbing Bai Ruyue, Xiao Chen finally said in a hoarse voice, "Let her go." The anger in his heart had already made Xiao Chen unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. Xiao Chen only knew that he couldn't just watch as something happened to his parents. However, in the face of Xiao Chen's words, Wang Ming only smiled coldly. Then, without any hesitation, the long sword in his hand directly pierced Bai Ruyue's heart. Fresh blood gushed out continuously, and Bai Ruyue directly fell into a pool of blood. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chen was completely stunned. He stood in a daze on the spot, motionless. His eyes were fixed on Bai Ruyue, who had fallen into a pool of blood. Dead. His mother had died in front of him just like that. Even so, Wang Ming still had no intention of stopping. He went to Xiao Qing's side once again and said with a smile as he attacked. "Xiao Chen, I said that I would make your life worse than death. Don't worry, this is just the beginning. The feeling of losing your parents must be terrible, right? As a son, you can only watch helplessly as your parents are killed. Is it very hopeless? Ha!" Saying this, Wang Ming laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with savagery. Along with Xiao Chen, Xiao Qing was also directly killed by Wang Ming's sword. Just like that, Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue were directly killed by Wang Ming in front of Xiao Chen. Seeing his parents die, Xiao Chen had already completely lost his mind. He didn't care about illusion or reality at all. This was definitely not good news for Xiao Chen. Because of his hatred, Xiao Chen had already begun to gradually sink into the illusion. At this moment, Xiao Chen no longer thought about getting rid of the illusion, nor did he care about where he was. Now, Xiao Chen only had one thing in mind, and that was to kill Wang Ming. No, he wanted to make Wang Ming's life worse than death and make him feel despair. Staring at Wang Ming with bloodshot eyes, Xiao Chen had already gradually sunk into the illusion because of his hatred. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2461. The corpses of Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue lay in front of Xiao Chen. At that moment, Xiao Chen looked as if he had lost his life. His eyes were lifeless, and he looked like a living corpse. The corpses of Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue lay in front of Xiao Chen. At that moment, Xiao Chen looked as if he had lost his life. His eyes were lifeless, and he looked like a living corpse. At the same time, there seemed to be a voice in Xiao Chen's heart asking him a question. Do you really want revenge? Do you really want to gain power? Yes, Xiao Chen answered without hesitation when faced with this question. He wanted power. He wanted to make Wang Ming suffer a fate worse than death. He wanted Wang Ming to feel the despair and helplessness that he felt now. Are you willing to pay any price for this? The voice continued to ask. I'm willing to pay any price, Xiao Chen replied. Xiao Chen was not in the mood to think about anything else. He only wanted revenge now. He wanted to make Wang Ming suffer a fate worse than death. He only wanted power. With Xiao Chen's answer, Xiao Chen suddenly felt as if some kind of shackle in his body had been broken. For a moment, Xiao Chen's cultivation began to rise steadily. Starting from the Yellow Realm, Mysterious Prime Realm, Earth Mirror Realm, Celestial Realm. Without any hindrance, Xiao Chen's cultivation began to rise rapidly. Wang Ming hadn't noticed Xiao Chen's change at first, but the elder of Yueshan's sect who had been in charge of watching over Xiao Chen all this time was the first to notice it. There was a look of horror on his face as he looked at Xiao Chen as if he had seen a ghost. How is this possible? It did not make sense at all. In just a few breaths of time, Xiao Chen's cultivation had broken through from the Yellow Realm to the Earth Mirror Realm. Moreover, as soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chen's cultivation had already broken through to the Celestial Realm. Such a thing was simply unheard of. Sensing the increasingly terrifying aura emanating from Xiao Chen's body, the elder's first reaction was to flee. At that moment, Xiao Chen's cultivation had already broken through the Celestial Realm. However, before the elder could even react, Xiao Chen had already grabbed the elder by the neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. This sudden turn of events completely stupefied the elder. At that moment, Wang Ming also looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. In just over 10 breaths of time, Xiao Chen's cultivation had already undergone an earth-shaking change. His cultivation had finally been restored. At this time, Xiao Chen was no longer in the Yellow Realm, but a half-step sovereign master. He had successfully restored his original cultivation. In front of the restored Xiao Chen, Wang Ming and the entire Yueshan sect were no more than ants in Xiao Chen's eyes. At most, they were a speck of dust. He could easily consign the Yueshan sect to eternal damnation, but would Xiao Chen let Wang Ming die so easily? Obviously not. Xiao Chen also wanted Wang Ming to feel his own pain and despair. Young master, run, run. Being held in Xiao Chen's hand, the elder of the Yueshan sect had no strength to resist at all, and could only struggle to speak to Wang Ming. He could no longer see through Xiao Chen's current cultivation realm, but his instincts told him that Xiao Chen was no longer Wang Ming. No, it should be said that Yueshan sect could not deal with him. With just one look, the elder of the Yueshan sect felt terrified, as if he had fallen into hell. Hearing the elder's words, Wang Ming naturally wanted to escape, but at that moment, he realized that he couldn't move his body at all. He couldn't even lift a finger, as if he was being suppressed by something. After successfully restoring his cultivation, it was naturally impossible for Wang Ming to escape from Xiao Chen. It could even be said that as long as Xiao Chen didn't agree, Wang Ming wouldn't be able to die even if he wanted to. Glancing indifferently at the elder of the Yueshan sect in his hand, Xiao Chen said coldly, "Don't you think it's too late to escape now? I remember you saying that even if you slaughter the Xiao family, who would dare say anything? Now let me ask you, if I slaughtered the Yueshan sect, who would dare say anything?" Xiao Chen loosened his grip as he spoke, but he immediately stomped the elder under his foot. Before Xiao Chen's cultivation had been restored, no one had dared to be dissatisfied with the Yueshan sect slaughtering the Xiao family. Now that Xiao Chen's cultivation had been restored, who would dare say anything if he slaughtered the entire continent, let alone a small Yueshan sect? Xiao Chen's heart was completely filled with hatred. Because of this hatred, Xiao Chen didn't realize that a heart demon had appeared in him. This heart demon was constantly pulling Xiao Chen into an illusion. Once Xiao Chen was completely addicted to the illusion, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that time, Xiao Chen would probably die of old age in the illusion. But at that moment, Xiao Chen didn't care at all. At that moment, there was only one thought in Xiao Chen's mind, and that was revenge. Grabbing the air, Xiao Chen, Wang Ming, and the Yueshan sect elder appeared in the front yard of the Chen residence. In the hall, the head of the Chen family and a group of higher-ups were present. Seeing Xiao Chen and the other two suddenly appear, the head of the Chen family was taken aback, and then he shouted coldly, "Xiao Chen." But before he could finish speaking, he saw Wang Ming lying at Xiao Chen's feet like a dead dog, and was stunned on the spot. What was going on? How had Wang Ming fallen into Xiao Chen's hands? Also, wasn't this elder Di Mingjing of the Yueshan sect? Why had Xiao Chen directly taken him down? They didn't know what had happened, but in the face of the Chen family's horror, Xiao Chen just said indifferently, "From today onwards, the Chen family no longer exists." As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit power within Xiao Chen's body spread out and covered the entire Chen family in an instant. Under the shroud of Xiao Chen's spirit power, everyone in the Chen family's mansion was crushed to death and turned into clouds of blood mist. The might of a half-step venerable sovereign was naturally not something these ants in the Chen family could contend with. Even Chen Muxue, who was in the backyard, was directly crushed to death without being able to put up any resistance. Xiao Chen didn't care about Chen Muxue's life or death at all. Following the deaths of the entire Chen family, the head of the Chen family looked at Xiao Chen in a daze. He didn't understand at all why things had turned out like this. Also, the Chen family, the huge Chen family, was it over just like that? He originally thought that he was riding on the coattails of the Yueshan sect, but who would have thought that in the end, it would bring disaster to the Chen family? Moreover, Xiao Chen didn't even make a move. Just the pressure of his aura alone was enough to wipe out the entire Chen family, not even leaving behind a chicken or a dog. At this time, there was no other living thing in the Chen residence except for the head of the Chen family. Why? Why did this happen? Standing in the main hall, the head of the Chen family said in a daze, but he didn't get any answer. As soon as he finished speaking, the head of the Chen family directly exploded and turned into a bloody mist, dying on the spot. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2462. In the blink of an eye, the entire Chen family had been slaughtered, and the air was filled with the thick stench of blood. Wang Ming was undoubtedly the most terrified of this outcome. At this moment, Wang Ming, who was sprawled at Xiao Chen's feet like a dead dog, looked at Xiao Chen with only horror in his eyes. He had never thought that Xiao Chen would have such strength. You? Who are you? How can you have such a cultivation? He looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. Wang Ming was already doubting whether the Xiao Chen in front of him was the real Xiao Chen. After all, Xiao Chen's cultivation was only at the Yellow Realm. How could he become so strong in the blink of an eye? Wang Ming might be a little foppish and arrogant, but he was definitely not a fool. If he had known that Xiao Chen had such strength, he would never have provoked Xiao Chen, let alone for a woman. Given the strength that Xiao Chen had displayed, Wang Ming was certain that even the Ju Mountain sect would not be able to stop Xiao Chen. In other words, Wang Ming had personally attracted a great enemy for the Zhu Mountain sect, an unmatched enemy. It was even possible that the Zhu Mountain sect would be doomed eternally because of Xiaochen. In the face of Wang Ming's horror, Xiaochen only glanced at him indifferently and said, "It's hard for you to die now even if you want to." Xiaochen had no intention of killing Wang Ming, at least not now. In Xiaochen's opinion, Wang Ming had not yet felt despair. It was not enough. The change in the Chen family naturally attracted the attention of the other families in Lingshan County. Even the city lord's mansion was alarmed. At this moment, the city lord of Lingshan County was sitting in the main hall of the city lord's mansion. He looked at a middle-aged man with a grave expression and said, "The Chen family has been destroyed?" "Yes," the middle-aged man replied respectfully. "First, the Xiao family was destroyed, and in the blink of an eye, the Chen family was destroyed. In less than a day, 2 of the 3 big families in Lingshan County had been destroyed. Only the Ma family was left." "Do you know the details?" The city lord of Lingshan County frowned and asked in a deep voice. The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "I don't know yet." Naturally, no one could get close to the Chen family now. Therefore, outsiders did not know the details of the Chen family's extermination. The governor's first reaction was that the Zhu Mountain sect was behind it. After all, in the city lord's opinion, only the Zhu Mountain sect had the ability to destroy the Chen family in an instant. They didn't realize that this matter was related to Xiaochen. After all, no matter how powerful Xiaochen was, he was only a warrior in the Yellow Realm. Although his future achievements were limitless, Xiaochen didn't have the ability to destroy the Chens. On this day, Lingshan County City had indeed undergone a huge change. However, as the saying goes, some families were happy while others were sad. At this moment, the Ma family was filled with laughter. The upper echelons of the Ma family gathered in the main hall. The Ma family head sat on the main seat with a smile on his face. "The Xiao family and the Chen family have been exterminated. Congratulations, family head. From now on, the Ma family will be the #1 family in Lingshan County City." Hearing this, an elder of the Ma family congratulated with a smile. For a long time, the Ma family, the Xiao family, and the Chen family had been fighting openly and secretly in Lingshan County City. However, after so many years, no one could do anything to the other. Now that the Xiao family and the Chen family had been exterminated, without the threat of these 2 families, the Ma family could indeed be called the #1 family in Lingshan County City. If the Ma family could even take over some of the properties of the Xiao family and the Chen family, they might even have the ability to compete with the governor's mansion and become a true local tyrant. Unfortunately, although their idea was good, reality didn't let the Ma family be happy for too long. Just as the elder of the Ma family finished speaking, a terrifying pressure descended from the sky. This pressure directly enveloped the entire Lingshan County City. At the same time, Xiaochen, Wang Ming, and the elder of the Zhu Mountain sect stood proudly in the sky above Lingshan County City. Of course, Wang Ming and the elder of the Zhu Mountain sect had been brought up into the sky by them. Given their cultivation, they couldn't fly at all. Looking at Xiaochen standing proudly in the sky as if he was walking on flat ground, Wang Ming and the elder of the Zhu Mountain sect lost all hope. To be able to fly in the sky, his cultivation definitely surpassed the celestial realm. When he thought about how he had provoked such a powerful enemy for the Zhu Mountain sect, Wang Ming's heart turned dark. Xiaochen didn't care about the changes in their expressions at all. Looking down at Lingshan County City, especially where the governor's mansion was, Xiaochen said coldly, "All of you deserve to die. From today onwards, Lingshan County City will cease to exist." That was right, Xiaochen wanted to slaughter Lingshan County City. Just as Xiaochen finished speaking, the governor of Lingshan County City strode out of the hall and looked up at Xiaochen and the other 2 standing proudly in the sky. When he saw Xiaochen, the governor of Lingshan County City was immediately stunned. Shanmu was possible, but what was going on with Xiaochen? The city lord of Lingshan County knew that the Zhu Mountain sect had made a move against the Xiao clan, but he chose to watch from the sidelines. He had no intention of interfering at all. It was no wonder that he was so surprised to see Xiaochen at this time. Xiaochen was actually still alive, and from the looks of it, it seemed that he had taken down Wang Ming and the Zhu Mountain sect elder. But this was impossible. How could Xiaochen have such strength? However, that terrifying pressure constantly told the governor that everything in front of him was real and there was nothing fake about it at all. The governor of Lingshan County City was terrified by that terrifying pressure. He braced himself and said to Xiaochen in the sky, "Xiaochen, you." Hearing the governor's words, Xiaochen glanced at him indifferently and said, "From today onwards, Lingshan County City will cease to exist." Cease to exist? Was Xiaochen going to slaughter Lingshan County City as well? He wanted to massacre the entire city. When the governor heard this, he immediately guessed what Xiaochen was going to do. He was shocked. This was definitely something that only a demonic martial artist would do. Massacring the entire city meant the lives of millions of people. Shocked, the governor shouted, "Xiaochen, you are also a citizen of Lingshan County City. How can you do something like massacring the entire city? This is also your home." The governor naturally couldn't watch Xiaochen massacre the entire city. Furthermore, he didn't expect things to develop like this. However, Xiaochen didn't mind his words at all. Home? When my Xiao family was massacred, where were the people of Lingshan County City? Where is the governor's mansion? Why didn't anyone stop me? If that's the case, what's the point of having Lingshan County City? Today, I will bury the entire city with my Xiao family. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2463. When the Xiao family was massacred, all the major forces in Lingshan County City chose to ignore it. Even the city governor's office, which controlled Lingshan County City, had no intention of intervening. Therefore, in Xiaochen's eyes, everyone in Lingshan County City deserved to die. When the Xiao family was massacred, all the major forces in Lingshan County City chose to ignore it. Even the city governor's office, which controlled Lingshan County City, had no intention of intervening. Therefore, in Xiaochen's eyes, everyone in Lingshan County City deserved to die. Falling into the demonic path was a sign of falling into the demonic path. Although he was in an illusion, Xiaochen had already fallen into the demonic path. Perhaps this was the terrifying part of the immortal demon path. One thought could become an immortal, and another could turn into a demon. After experiencing the massacre of the Xiao family and the murder of his parents, Xiaochen was slowly falling into the demonic path in the illusion. If he did not wake up in time, then Xiaochen would very likely be completely reduced to a killing machine, and would be trapped in the illusion forever. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaochen did not wait for the city governor's reply. With a single thought, a terrifying pressure suddenly descended from the sky like a mountain. Everyone in Lingshan County City was instantly crushed and turned into a bloody mist. Ordinary people without cultivation could not even withstand a trace of Xiaochen's aura. As for warriors like the city governor and the Ma family master, although they were much stronger than ordinary people, in Xiaochen's eyes, they were still ants that could be easily crushed. There was not much difference between them. Looking at the blood flowing like a river in Lingshan County City, the city governor's face was filled with anger. He looked at Xiaochen unwillingly. Why? Why did you massacre the city? It was the Zhu Mountain sect who killed your Xiao family. Why? He shouted angrily. However, the city governor's angry shout did not receive an answer. Just as he finished speaking, Xiaochen's terrifying pressure had already crushed him to death. The governor was dead, and so was the Ma family. Just a second ago, the Ma family was still fantasizing about becoming the #1 family in Lingshan County. Now, their heads were separated from their bodies. Before they could wake up from their dreams, the Ma family was destroyed just like that. With Xiaochen's current half-step Emperor realm cultivation, it was indeed not too difficult for him to wipe out a small city like Lingshan County City. But when Wang Ming and the Zhu Mountain sect elders saw this, their faces turned pale, and they couldn't help shivering in their hearts. Dead. An entire city, millions of people, died in an instant just like that. Even their corpses were left behind. Looking around, there was not a single person left alive in Lingshan County City. Not even corpses were left. There was only a thick smell of blood and a river of blood that was constantly gathering together. The sky was dyed red with blood, as if it was telling the story of what had happened to Lingshan County City. Wang Ming was completely terrified when he saw the instigator of all this. He admitted that he wasn't a good person, but Wang Ming would never do something like massacring a city. After all, this was millions of lives. Moreover, what terrified Wang Ming the most was that after doing all this, Xiao Chen's expression didn't change at all. He was still as calm as water, as if what happened just now had nothing to do with him at all. Devil, you. Wang Ming stared blankly at Xiao Chen as if he had been scared out of his wits. Devil, you. Faced with Wang Ming's words, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Don't worry, your Zhu Mountain sect's fate will definitely be 10,000 times worse than Lingshan County City's. I guarantee it." After saying that, the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up into a faint smile. When Wang Ming saw this smile, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He killed millions of people without any hesitation. Even after doing all this, his expression didn't change at all. How callous did he have to be to do something like this? Lingshan County City was completely burned to the ground. Just as Xiao Chen had said, from now on, Lingshan County City would no longer exist in this world. After dealing with Lingshan County City, Xiao Chen led Wang Ming and Wang Ming directly to Zhu Mountain sect without any reluctance. To Xiao Chen, Zhu Mountain sect deserved to die the most. As he watched Xiao Chen approach Zhu Mountain sect, Wang Ming felt as if he could already see the scene of Xiao Chen directly destroying Zhu Mountain sect. This person was a devil who killed without batting an eyelid. Even Lingshan County City was massacred, so one could imagine the fate of Zhu Mountain sect. Wang Ming was filled with regret. If he had known earlier that this would happen, he would never have incurred the wrath of Xiao Chen. He wouldn't have even gone to Lingshan County City, not even once. Regret was one thing, but it was a pity that time couldn't be turned back. Things had already happened, and the outcome seemed destined. Nothing could be changed. Under Xiao Chen's lead, the three of them quickly arrived at Zhu Mountain sect and landed directly on the sect master's square. Seeing Xiao Chen and the other two descend from the sky, many Zhu Mountain sect disciples turned to look at them. When they saw that it was Wang Ming, many of them revealed looks of adoration. As the young sect master of Zhu Mountain sect, Wang Ming naturally had a high prestige in the sect. However, in the face of the gazes of so many Zhu Mountain sect disciples, Wang Ming's heart was like dead ashes. It was over, Zhu Mountain sect was finished. He had already felt Xiao Chen's despair. He clearly knew what was going to happen next, but there was nothing he could do to stop it, let alone change anything. This feeling was truly unbearable. However, Xiao Chen didn't think this was enough, because everything had just begun. Xiao Chen wanted everyone in Zhu Mountain sect to feel despair and regret. His aura erupted and instantly enveloped the entire Zhu Mountain sect. Under the cover of Xiao Chen's aura, no one in Zhu Mountain sect could escape Xiao Chen's perception. He easily took control of the entire Zhu Mountain sect. At the same time, a group of Zhu Mountain sect elders and sect master hurried over. "May I know which senior has graced my Zhu Mountain sect with your presence? Please excuse us for not going out to meet you." A voice sounded, and then a middle-aged man quickly came to the main square with a few people. The middle-aged man was the sect master of Zhu Mountain sect and Wang Ming's father, Wang Songshi. When he saw Wang Ming next to Xiao Chen, Wang Songshi was taken aback, then said suspiciously, "Ming you." From Xiao Chen's aura, Wang Songshi already knew that this person was very strong. At the very least, he wasn't someone his Zhu Mountain sect could contend with, but he hadn't expected Wang Ming to appear with such an expert. But before Wang Songshi could rejoice, Xiao Chen spoke indifferently. "My name is Xiao Chen. You should know me." Because of Xiao Chen's powerful aura, Wang Songshi had been very respectful, but when he heard Xiao Chen introduce himself, Wang Songshi was completely stunned. "Xiao Chen. the Shao family of Lingshan County City? Wang Songshi had also heard of the enmity between Wang Ming and Xiaochen. Basically, Wang Songshi had tacitly approved of Wang Ming's revenge, which was why Wang Songshi was so shocked when he learned of Xiaochen's identity. Please add, please vote, please recommend me. End of chapter. Chapter 2464. Wang Songshi had thought that it was a senior who had come to the Zhu Mountain sect, but who would have thought that it was Xiaochen? Stunned, Wang Songshi stared at Xiaochen in front of him and said incredulously, "Impossible. How could you be Xiaochen?" Wang Songshi had thought that it was a senior who had come to the Zhu Mountain sect, but who would have thought that it was Xiaochen? Stunned, Wang Songshi stared at Xiaochen in front of him and said incredulously, "Impossible. How could you be Xiaochen?" Wang Songshi knew a little about Xiaochen and knew that he was the top genius of the Lingshan commandery. Even so, Wang Songshi did not take Xiaochen seriously. No matter how outstanding Xiaochen was, he was only a junior and his cultivation was only in the Yellow Realm. Such a person was no threat to the Zhu Mountain sect. Talent was good, but what was the use of it if one did not live long? Therefore, Wang Songshi had never cared about Xiaochen. However, the aura emanating from Xiaochen, who was standing in front of Wang Songshi at the moment, made even Wang Songshi tremble with fear. A chill that came from the bottom of his heart kept telling Wang Songshi that Xiaochen was very, very dangerous. He could not connect the Xiaochen in front of him with the Xiaochen in his memory. He could not believe that they were the same person. But whether Wang Songshi wanted to believe it or not, it was the truth. Xiaochen stepped forward and stood in front of Wang Songshi. He looked at Wang Songshi indifferently and said, "Believe it or not, I'm here anyway. You should know why I'm here." Hearing Xiaochen's words, Wang Songshi was stunned and did not know what to say for a moment. Xiaochen did not care about this. Since the Zhu Mountain sect had defeated the Shao family and killed his parents, Xiaochen would naturally make the Zhu Mountain sect pay a heavy price. With a thought, the sword realm unfolded. Countless sharp sword chi instantly enveloped the entire Zhu Mountain sect. In the beginning, many disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect did not react. With their level of cultivation and eyesight, they naturally did not know what the power of a world was. Therefore, when they were enveloped by the sword realm, many disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect were puzzled. They wondered what kind of power this was and why they had never seen it before. Due to their ignorance, they did not feel fear. Of course, this was only temporary. As some of them were injured by the sword chi in the sword realm, many disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect realized that this mysterious force was very dangerous. The sword chi was like sharp knives. Under Xiaochen's deliberate control, the sword chi did not directly kill the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect. Instead, it seemed to be torturing them. Each sword chi slashed at a vital point. While the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect could not resist, they could not die. At the same time, they could only watch helplessly as their flesh was cut into pieces by the Jiani sword. All the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect were enveloped and tortured by the sword chi. Miserable screams rose and fell one after another. The terrifying sword chi left the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect completely powerless to resist. They could only watch as their bodies were torn apart and cut into pieces by the sword chi. "Xiaochen, you!" Wang Songshi was stunned when he saw this, and then he shouted angrily. Unfortunately, Wang Songshi and the other senior members of the Zhu Mountain sect were unable to move at all. It was as if their bodies had been imprisoned, and they could not move at all. They could only watch as the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect were tortured by Xiaochen. Xiaochen was not in a hurry to make a move on Wang Songshi and the other higher-ups of the Zhu Mountain sect. Xiaochen wanted to keep them alive and torture them slowly. One by one, the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect screamed as they fell to the ground. For a moment, rivers of blood flowed everywhere in the Zhu Mountain sect, making it look like hell on earth. "Your Zhu Mountain sect wiped out my Shao family. Today, I will wipe out your Zhu Mountain sect. It's reasonable, don't you think?" Xiaochen said indifferently as he looked at Wang Songshi with a cold smile. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Wang Songshi's eyes turned red, but there was nothing he could do. He himself could not move, let alone the others. On the side, Wang Ming watched the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect die one by one. Moreover, their deaths were incomparably miserable. Almost no skin was left intact on their bodies. Wang Ming couldn't help but burst into tears. Xiaochen, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. If you want to kill me, then kill me. They are innocent. This matter has nothing to do with them. I am the one who wiped out your Xiao family. Let them go. Wang Ming completely collapsed at that moment. Helplessly watching the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect being slaughtered by Xiaochen, Wang Ming's last line of defense collapsed. Hearing Wang Ming's words, Xiaochen turned to look at him and sneered. Innocent? Wang Ming, I remember you saying that there is nothing innocent in this world. If you are not as strong as others, then you can't blame others. When you wiped out my Xiao family, weren't the others innocent? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your Zhu Mountain sect for being too weak. Xiaochen obviously wouldn't let anyone from the Zhu Mountain sect off. Although many of them had not participated in the Xiao family's affairs, they would be buried with the sect just because they were disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect. As for whether they were innocent or not, Xiaochen obviously wouldn't consider this. Just like when the Xiao family was wiped out, had Wang Ming considered whether the other members of the Xiao family were innocent? As he spoke, Xiaochen glanced at the elder next to Wang Ming. At that moment, the elder's entire face was ashen and his expression dull. He clearly knew what his final outcome would be. Moreover, compared with the other elders of the Zhu Mountain sect, his fate would probably be even more miserable, since he was the one who had personally wiped out the Xiao family. After more than an hour, all the disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect were dead. At that moment, only Wang Songshi and his son, the elders, and Wang Songshi's wife, Wang Ming's mother, were left in the huge Zhu Mountain sect. Wang Songshi and the others watched helplessly as Xiaochen slaughtered the numerous disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect little by little. For a moment, their hearts were like dead ashes, and Wang Songshi himself roared crazily. Xiaochen, you devil! Aren't you afraid of incurring the wrath of the heavens by doing this? What's the difference between you and a martial artist of the devil path? The Zhu Mountain sect, which had been passed down for many years, was completely finished. It had been wiped out by Xiaochen in less than an hour. In the face of Wang Songshi's angry roar, Xiaochen sneered indifferently. Devil? That's right, to your Zhu Mountain sect, I am indeed the devil, and this is just the beginning. Wang Songshi, Wang Ming, do you think this is the end? Slaughtering the numerous disciples of the Zhu Mountain sect was just the beginning. After saying this, without waiting for Wang Songshi's reply, Xiaochen slowly stretched out his right hand and made a grasping motion in the air. Wang Songshi's wife, Wang Ming's mother, was directly grabbed by Xiaochen from the back mountain of the Zhu Mountain sect and brought to the main square. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of him with deep fear on his face, Xiaochen's eyes didn't waver in the slightest. Please add, please vote, please recommend me. Chapter 2465. In the face of Wang Ming's mother and Wang Songshi's wife, Xiaochen was still unmoved. However, when Wang Ming saw Xiaochen forcibly capture his mother, he went completely crazy. He was completely suppressed by Xiaochen's aura and couldn't break free at all. However, Wang Ming still gritted his teeth and said, Xiaochen, what are you doing? Are you still a man? You actually attacked a woman. Let go of my mother. In this world, there was no doubt that Wang Ming had the best relationship with his mother. Wang Songshi had either been busy cultivating or dealing with the affairs of Zhu Mountain sect since he was young. He had very little time to casually accompany Wang Ming. Most of the time, Wang Ming was with his mother. Thus, compared with Wang Songshi, Wang Ming's feelings for his mother were clearly deeper. When he saw Xiaochen about to attack his mother, Wang Ming completely couldn't bear it any longer. However, in the face of Wang Ming's angry roar, Xiaochen completely ignored him. Seeing this, Wang Ming's anger at the beginning turned into a bitter pleading in the end. Xiaochen, let my mother go. If you want to kill her, kill me. I'll take responsibility for my own actions. I did all of this, it has nothing to do with my mother. Wang Ming said in a tearful voice. From this point of view, Wang Ming could indeed be considered a filial son. However, when Xiaochen heard this, he said indifferently, "You'll take responsibility for your own actions. A man should take responsibility for his own actions. Can you take responsibility for it alone?" The entire Xiao family had been massacred. Even the maids and guards weren't spared. Wang Ming naturally couldn't take responsibility for it alone. As he spoke, Xiaochen looked at Wang Ming. His expression was still indifferent, but at this moment, when he met Xiaochen's gaze, Wang Ming didn't know why he actually panicked. It was as if Xiaochen was going to do something that he couldn't accept in the next second. Sure enough, Xiaochen looked at Wang Ming and said indifferently, "Since you love your mother so much, don't you think it'll be very interesting if you kill her yourself?" Kill his mother himself? Hearing this, Wang Ming was stunned for a moment. Then, he shook his head frantically. "No, Xiaochen. If you want to kill someone, kill me. Don't make things difficult for my mother." Wang Ming was indeed very filial to his mother. However, this scene made Xiaochen's killing intent explode. Why? Xiaochen also loved his mother, but Wang Ming killed his mother. When Wang killed Bai Ruiyue, did he ever think of this point? When he killed Bai Ruiyue, he didn't think about this point. Thus, Xiaochen's heart didn't soften his heart at all. Why? Because Xiaochen killed his mother, Wang killed his mother was killed. Why? Why? Because, his killed his mother? Killed his mother killed her? Killed mother? Killed? Since Wang Ming had killed his parents, Xiaochen would let Wang Ming witness his parents being killed with his own eyes. This could be considered giving Wang Ming a taste of his own medicine. Wang Ming was extremely unwilling in his heart, but Xiaochen didn't give him a chance. When Wang Ming killed his parents, Xiaochen already saw him as one of the 4 people. Moreover, as the killing intent in his heart continued to grow, Xiaochen also continued to sink into the illusion. At this moment, Xiaochen already didn't care about reality or illusion. He only thought about revenge. And just as Xiaochen was about to make his move, in the outside world, Xiaochen had already spent more than a month in the illusion. However, in the outside world, only 2 hours had passed since Xiaochen entered the Immortal Demon Road. At this moment, in Mu Lingxian's residence, after stopping the conflict between Gong Miantian and Yi Tian, Mu Lingxian sat alone in the courtyard and drank tea. However, his gaze would occasionally look in the direction of the Immortal Demon Road. Mu Lingxian was indeed very concerned about Xiaochen entering the Immortal Demon Road. At this moment, Xiaochen's situation wasn't very good. This was because Xiaochen had gradually sunk into the illusion. Mu Lingxian sighed lightly and said indifferently, "Forget it. This venerable one will help you this time." With that, Mu Lingxian gently pointed with his finger. Immediately, a white light flashed and directly entered the Immortal Demon Road. In the Immortal Demon Road, Xiaochen should have entered the village. However, at this moment, the village was no longer there. Xiaochen was sitting cross-legged on the Immortal Demon Road. Around Xiaochen, there were many skeletons. These people were in the same posture as Xiaochen, sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed. Obviously, the skeletons around Xiaochen were people who had entered the Immortal Demon Road but failed. Like Xiaochen, they were trapped in the illusion and couldn't extricate themselves. In the end, they directly fell here. The Immortal Demon Road. The Immortal Demon Road tested a person's state of mind. One thought to become an immortal, and one thought to become a demon. Once one fell into the illusion, it was equivalent to a complete failure. Xiaochen was currently in such a situation. If Xiaochen didn't wake up in time, then it was very likely that he would be like the people around him, trapped in the illusion and unable to extricate himself. In the end, he would fall here. However, with Mu Lingxian's move, the white light directly entered the Immortal Demon token on Xiaochen's waist. Fortunately, Gong Mantian had given the immortal demon token to Xiao Chen. Otherwise, it would take a lot of effort for Mu Lingxian to help. With the immortal demon token, everything was much simpler. After the white light entered the immortal demon token, a gentle white light was emitted from the immortal demon token, enveloping Xiao Chen's entire body. Under the cover of the white light, Xiao Chen's originally somewhat ferocious expression gradually eased up. The white light was the immortal demon token helping Xiao Chen to expel his inner demons and remove the illusion. In the illusion, Xiao Chen, who was originally bursting with killing intent, had a white light fall from the sky at this moment. Under the cover of the white light, Xiao Chen's expression quickly changed. He was almost trapped in the illusion and unable to extricate himself. Fortunately, the white light appeared in time and pulled Xiao Chen back. With the help of the white light, Xiao Chen's mind was clear. He quickly realized that he had been in the illusion all along. The originally terrifying killing intent completely dissipated and was replaced by a self-mocking smile. Shaking his head, Xiao Chen laughed self-deprecatingly. After so many years, I thought that my state of mind was as firm as a rock. Who would have thought that in the end, I would still fall into the illusion? Xiao Chen knew that he had almost fallen into the illusion. Although he was still a little afraid, with the help of the immortal demon token, he at least managed to wake up in time. Furthermore, with the guidance of the white light, Xiao Chen also knew how to break out of the illusion. Xiao Chen's sudden change confused Wang Ming, Wang Songshi, and the others. They naturally didn't know why Xiao Chen, who had been brimming with killing intent a second ago, had completely transformed into a different person in the next second. At this moment, Xiao Chen no longer had much killing intent in his eyes as he looked at Wang Ming, Wang Songshi, and the others. Everything was just an illusion, and his parents were still alive and well. After waking up, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have the same killing intent as before. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2466. Phew. Xiao Chen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and regained his clarity of mind. His killing intent from before instantly vanished like smoke in thin air. He glanced at Wang Ming and the others around him. At that moment, Xiao Chen's expression was already very calm as he faced them, without any sadness or joy. Phew. Xiao Chen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and regained his clarity of mind. His killing intent from before instantly vanished like smoke in thin air. He glanced at Wang Ming and the others around him. At that moment, Xiao Chen's expression was already very calm as he faced them, without any sadness or joy. The people in front of him were just illusions, so Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't get angry with these non-existent people. With a gentle wave of his hand, Wang Ming and the others disappeared in an instant, as if they had never existed. At the same time, the surrounding scenery began to change constantly. The surrounding scenery began to collapse, and the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Chen had returned to the immortal demon road. Xiao Chen, who was originally sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, slowly opened them at this moment. He slowly scanned his surroundings and found that there were skeletons all around. Xiao Chen shook his head and laughed. Xiao Chen had already guessed the origins of these people. They probably couldn't break the illusion, and had completely sunk into it and died in the end. Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't underestimate the environment of the immortal demon road. He had personally experienced it, and even he himself had almost sunk into it and couldn't extricate himself. After so many years, this was the first time Xiao Chen had seen such a realistic illusion. He got up and gently patted the immortal demon token. He knew that he was able to successfully break the illusion thanks to the help of the immortal demon token. Otherwise, given his previous state in the illusion, it was hard to say what the final result would be. A small token had actually saved his life. Of course, Xiao Chen didn't know that Mu Lingxian had also helped him. He had successfully resolved the crisis. At the same time, Xiao Chen also knew the specific use of the immortal demon token. With the immortal demon token, Xiao Chen could indeed run amok on the immortal demon road. However, Xiaochen had to rely on himself to pass the test on the Immortal Demon Road. However, Xiaochen didn't think too much about it and quickly continued on his journey. Xiaochen didn't know how long the Immortal Demon Road was, but with the Immortal Demon token, Xiaochen was very confident. Along the empty Immortal Demon Road, Xiaochen didn't know how long he had walked. Soon, a palace appeared in front of Xiaochen. This palace looked very simple, and there was nothing special about it. However, it really crossed the Immortal Demon Road. If one wanted to continue moving forward, they had to pass through this palace. As Xiaochen came to the front of the palace, the door slowly opened. Suddenly, a heart-palpitating aura spread out. This aura gave people a feeling of dusk. The palace was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything at all. Moreover, Xiaochen also tried to use his spirit to explore, but it was still to no avail. Completely unable to find out what was in the palace, Xiaochen was helpless. He could only brace himself and walk into the palace. As Xiaochen strode into the palace, the door closed automatically. At the same time, the scene in front of Xiaochen changed. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have arrived in a starry sky. Surrounded by an endless starry sky, he stood proudly above the starry sky. At the same time, 4 huge golden statues slowly condensed and formed around him. Each of the 4 statues was tens of thousands of meters tall. Standing before them, Xiaochen looked as insignificant as a speck of dust. Furthermore, each of the statues was extremely lifelike. One could even say that they were extremely lifelike. They were like 4 gods, inspiring awe and veneration in the hearts of those who saw them. It's not an illusion. After sensing carefully, Xiaochen was sure that he wasn't in an illusion. This should be a small world formed by the interior of the palace. To put it simply, although Xiaochen seemed to be in a starry sky, Xiaochen was still in the palace. The space formed by the palace wasn't simple. However, before Xiaochen could ponder any further, one of the golden statues began to shake violently. Following the shaking, cracks began to spread on the statue. Finally, accompanied by a muffled sound, the statue directly exploded. At the same time, a young man appeared in front of Xiaochen. The young man appeared from this statue. However, looking at the young man in front of him, Xiaochen could tell that he wasn't a living person at all. Instead, he was only left with a wisp of his soul, and there was no possibility of him being resurrected. It was just a remnant soul. Faced with Xiaochen's gaze, the young man took a step forward and appeared in front of Xiaochen in an instant. He sized Xiaochen up and said faintly, "You are right. Not bad. After so many years, you are the first person to be able to reach this place." The Immortal Demon Token? No wonder. This palace should be the second test on the Immortal Demon Road. However, after so many years, no one could reach this place. In the first test, no one could break the illusion. At first, he was a little surprised. However, when he saw the Immortal Demon Token on Xiaochen's waist, the young man revealed a look of realization. No wonder he could reach this place. It turned out that he had the help of the Immortal Demon Token. Hearing the young man's words, Xiaochen opened his mouth and asked, "Who are you?" It could be seen that the young man was only left with a wisp of his soul. Xiaochen was also curious about the young man's identity. Facing Xiaochen's question, the young man smiled and said, "My name is Bai Tao. I am considered one of the guardians of this palace. Of course, it can also be said that I am your test." The young man was the golden statue from before. His appearance was exactly the same. Hearing this, Xiaochen nodded and said, "Will defeating you be considered as passing this test?" "Haha, of course not. Do you see the other 3 statues? Merely defeating me is not enough. You need to defeat at least 2 of the 4 of us in order to pass." Hearing this, Bai Tao laughed in a clear voice. Defeating 2 of the 4 people. Hearing this, Xiaochen didn't reply. Instead, he looked at the other 3 golden statues. At the same time, Bai Tao paused and said with a deep expression, "However, this is a requirement for ordinary challengers. Since you have the Immortal Demon Token, you don't have to challenge us and can pass directly. However, in this way, you won't be able to get the opportunity given by the four of us. It's up to you to choose. Defeating the four of them could give you the opportunity. Hearing this, Xiaochen frowned and looked directly at Bai Tao. Facing Xiaochen's gaze, Bai Tao didn't avoid it. He calmly looked at Xiaochen and said with a smile, "The choice is in your hands. Of course, if you choose to challenge us, we will suppress our cultivation to the same level as yours. This is also the rule. We will fight at the same level. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." Chapter 2467. With the Immortal Demon token, Xiaochen could choose whether or not to challenge Bai Tao and the others. Hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen fell into hesitation. If he didn't challenge them and went directly, it would be the safest. However, according to Bai Tao, once he did so, there would be no reward. Xiaochen didn't know the identity of Bai Tao and the others, nor did he know what the so-called reward was. Therefore, he didn't know whether it was worth challenging the four of them or what the consequences would be if he failed the challenge. What are the consequences if I fail the challenge? And what is the so-called reward? After a moment of hesitation, Xiaochen looked up at Bai Tao and asked. It was also because Xiaochen did not know the identities of Bai Tao and the others. Otherwise, he definitely would not have asked this question. After all, given the identities of Bai Tao and the others, the rewards that they could give out were obviously not ordinary. Bai Tao, Di Jun, Fan Tian, and Xue Qin were absolutely famous in the Hongmeng world. The four statues in front of him were the four of them. Bai Tao and the others had indeed fallen many years ago. However, in the past, Bai Tao and the others were known as the four divine gods. They were the top experts in the entire Hongmeng world. Before Mu Lingxian became the world lord of the Hongmeng world, the four of them were the overlords of the entire Hongmeng world. It could be said that Bai Tao and the others were the older generation compared to Mu Lingxian. Before Mu Lingxian rose, the four of them were considered the most likely people to become the world lord. Mu Lingxian was able to become the world lord because he defeated Bai Tao and the others one by one. He didn't know why Bai Tao's remnant soul would appear on the Immortal Demon Road. However, he was afraid that it had something to do with Mu Lingxian. Of course, this didn't matter to Xiaochen. What was important was that with the status and strength of Bai Tao and the other three, the rewards they would give would naturally not be ordinary. It should be known that Bai Tao and the others were all at the peak of the ancestor realm. They were all people who could be compared to Gong Nantian. Hearing Xiaochen's question, Bai Tao smiled and said, "You are quite cautious." Originally, Bai Tao didn't need to answer Xiaochen's question, but since Xiaochen had the Immortal Demon token, Bai Tao was quite easygoing and explained with a smile, "If you fail the challenge, you will naturally fall here. You should know that this is not an illusion, so if you lose, you will naturally die. As for the reward, it's hard to say, but with your current cultivation, if you can obtain the reward, it will be enough for you to break through to the Emperor realm." At first, Xiaochen did not pay too much attention to Bai Tao's words. Failure meant death. Xiaochen had long since expected such an outcome. However, after hearing Bai Tao's last sentence, Xiaochen's eyes suddenly revealed a hint of excitement. The reward was enough for him to break through to the Emperor realm. One had to know that although Xiaochen was now a half-step Emperor realm master, if he cultivated normally, breaking through to the Emperor realm was not something that could be done in a short time. At this moment, Bai Tao actually said that their reward could allow him to directly break through to the Emperor realm. Such a temptation was very big for Xiaochen. The Emperor realm and the half-step Emperor realm seemed to be half a step apart, but in fact, the gap was very large. After all, a half-step Emperor realm master was not a true Emperor realm master. For example, Jun Wuya and Xia Tian were both half-step Ancestor Realm Masters, but how could a half-step Ancestor Realm Master compare with a true Ancestor Realm Master? To be honest, Bai Tao's reward made Xiaochen very excited. At the same time, he could not refuse. Breaking through to the Emperor Realm was something that Xiaochen had been thinking about recently. A large part of the reason why he stayed in the Cloud Palace to cultivate was that Xiaochen wanted to break through to the Emperor realm as soon as possible. Only then could he turn the tide in the Great Thousand Worlds righteous and demonic war. It was no exaggeration to say that if Xiaochen could break through to the Emperor realm, then the evil spirits would no longer be a threat. At that time, Xiaochen would have at least a 90% chance of killing the evil spirits. Who were the evil spirits? Xiazi of the evil path, not to mention his extraordinary talent and heaven-defying combat strength, he definitely had many life-saving methods. Even so, as long as he broke through to the Emperor realm, Xiaochen was still confident that he could kill him. This showed how big the gap between a half-step Emperor realm master and an Emperor realm master was. The reward was too tempting, so Xiaochen agreed without hesitation. Okay, I choose to challenge. Xiaochen finally made his choice. Firstly, the reward was too attractive. Secondly, Bai Tao said that they would suppress their cultivation to the same level as Xiaochen. Xiaochen was not afraid of anyone in the same realm. This was Xiaochen's pride. Bai Tao did not seem to be surprised by Xiaochen's choice. On the contrary, he showed a knowing smile and nodded. Good. In that case, let's begin. If even I am not your opponent, then you probably won't have much of a chance against the other three. Bai Tao, Di Jun, Fan Tian, and Xue Qing were actually very close in strength, so Bai Tao was the first to make a move. If Xiaochen could not even defeat him, then there was no need for the other three to make a move. Hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen did not refuse. He nodded slightly, and then a terrifying aura soared into the sky. At the same time, he displayed the Sword Realm. Feeling the Sword Realm spreading, Bai Tao's eyes flashed with a smile. Sword Physique, complete Sword Realm. Not bad. He did not expect Xiaochen to have a Sword Physique. Even in the primordial world, the Sword Physique was 1 in 10,000, and there might not even be 1 in a million years. Bai Tao was a little excited. However, the real reason why Bai Tao was excited was not because Xiaochen had a sword physique, but because Bai Tao was also a sword cultivator. Moreover, he was a top sword cultivator in the primordial world. At the same time, Bai Tao also had a sword physique. Among the 4 Divine Realm experts, Bai Tao was the only sword cultivator. He was excited. In an instant, the power of the Sword Realm erupted from Bai Tao's body and collided with Xiaochen's Sword Realm. Feeling that Bai Tao also had a sword physique and also comprehended the Sword Realm, Xiaochen's eyes flashed with a strange light. However, before Xiaochen could think more, Xiaochen's Sword Realm was in imminent danger under the impact of Bai Tao's Sword Realm. It was showing signs of collapsing. Xiaochen could not tell what level Bai Tao's sword physique had reached. It was not at the complete Sword Realm, but its power was much stronger than his Sword Realm. It should be known that Xiaochen's Sword Realm had reached the complete Sword Realm, and Bai Tao's Sword Realm was even stronger than his. Could there be other realms above the complete Sword Realm? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2468. Bai Tao's sword world was indeed more powerful than Xiaochen's. In the confrontation between the 2 sword worlds, Xiaochen was undoubtedly at a disadvantage. On the other side, Bai Tao seemed to have seen through Xiaochen's thoughts as he spoke with a faint smile. Bai Tao's sword world was indeed more powerful than Xiaochen's. In the confrontation between the 2 sword worlds, Xiaochen was undoubtedly at a disadvantage. On the other side, Bai Tao seemed to have seen through Xiaochen's thoughts as he spoke with a faint smile. The perfect realm is indeed the peak of the sword world. However, the path of martial arts is so interesting. At the ancestor realm, the division of realms no longer has much meaning. In other words, the perfect realm of the sword world is the peak for ordinary people. However, for those who truly stand at the peak, or those who have surpassed the peak, is this the limit? Bai Tao himself did not know what level his sword world was at, nor did he want to know. Just as Bai Tao had said, at his level, the division of realms no longer had any meaning to him. This was because the world simply did not know where his limit was, and it was even more impossible to touch his realm. Moreover, at the level of the ancestor realm, it was no longer possible to rely on the division of realms or the inheritance left behind to help future generations break through. If one wanted to break through to the ancestor realm, one could only rely on oneself. This was because every ancestor realm cultivator had their own understanding of the martial Tao. If one could not even comprehend this point thoroughly, wanting to break through to the ancestor realm was simply a fool's dream. So, did Bai Tao's sword world really surpass the perfect realm? Perhaps. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Tao's expression brightened. With a light clench of his right hand, an ancient longsword quickly condensed in his hand. Looking at Xiaochen, Bai Tao softly said, "Be careful." As he spoke, he directly slashed out with his sword. This sword did not give off the slightest feeling of sharpness, but it made one's hair stand on end. There was no sorrow, no joy, nor the slightest killing intent. Just as Qin Feng had said, a truly sharp sword should be without sorrow or joy. It should not be measured by everything in the outside world. When I slashed out with my sword, I would be the center of the entire world. This was what it meant to have no sword in one's heart. Bai Tao had clearly reached the level of having no sword in his heart. It was clearly an ordinary attack, but Xiaochen didn't know how to deal with it. It was as if he couldn't dodge this attack, but it was also as if this attack was supposed to hit him. This was the first time Xiaochen had faced off against an expert who had comprehended swordsmanship to such a level. However, Xiaochen did not choose to surrender. Instead, he slashed out with his sword, displaying the Emperor's sword. Compared to Bai Tao's sword, Xiaochen's sword looked very intimidating. It gave people the feeling that it could cut the sky and split the earth. Compared to Bai Tao's sword, Xiaochen's sword was at the opposite end of the spectrum. In the eyes of an ordinary martial artist, it was obvious that Xiaochen's sword would make them feel stronger. This was because the sharpness of Xiaochen's sword gave people the most intuitive feeling. On the other hand, Bai Tao's sword seemed ordinary, as if there was nothing special about it at all. However, when the two swords collided fiercely, the results were poles apart. Xiaochen had already displayed the Emperor's sword, but after clashing with Bai Tao's sword, the Emperor's sword quickly collapsed. It was as if they were not on the same level at all. Mediocrity was only on the surface. Perhaps it should be described as having been washed clean. No matter if it was Bai Tao's sword or Qin Feng's sword, they were all washed clean and returned to their original state, extremely restrained. But because of this, their swords were even stronger. There was no sword in one's heart, because I was the sword. When I slashed out with my sword, there was no need for the world to change its color. After easily defeating Xiaochen's Emperor's sword, Bai Tao's sword did not stop. It continued to attack Xiaochen. In this regard, Xiaochen had no choice but to slash out again. In the end, Xiaochen only managed to block Bai Tao's sword after using the Emperor's sword 3 times in a row. 3 Emperor's swords were only able to block Bai Tao's sword. However, this sword was not a killing move for Bai Tao. It was just a casual slash. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Bai Tao had indeed only used the cultivation of a half-step Emperor Master. He did not use his cultivation to suppress Xiaochen. The two of them were in the same cultivation realm. Although their cultivation realm was the same, it was so difficult for Xiaochen to block Bai Tao's sword. The reason for this was entirely because of the gap in their comprehension of the sword. Xiaochen's current level was still at the level of showing off one's ability in killing with a sharp sword. However, Bai Tao had already stepped over this level and sublimated his own vision to another level. After using the Emperor's sword 3 times in a row, Xiaochen had consumed a lot of energy. His aura was slightly restricted. Seeing this, Bai Tao said calmly, "Your comprehension of the sword is too shallow. If that's the case, little guy, you won't be a match for me in the same realm." Bai Tao could completely suppress Xiaochen with just his comprehension of the sword. Hearing this, Xiaochen did not refute, because it was the truth. Taking a deep breath, Xiaochen naturally could not back down since he had already chosen to challenge Bai Tao. Moreover, there was no room for regret. After fighting with Bai Tao just now, Xiaochen seemed to have an extremely vague comprehension in his heart. He could not describe what it was, but it was very mysterious. It was as if a string in his body had been touched. Xiaochen tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. This time, he did not wait for Bai Tao to make a move. He did not use the sword of the Emperor, it was just a casual attack. Compared to before, Xiaochen's attack was somewhat similar to Bai Tao's and Qin Feng's. Although there was still a strong murderous aura and sharpness in the sword, there was an additional indescribable feeling. Interesting. Naturally, Bai Tao was able to see the change in Xiaochen's sword. A hint of a smile flashed in his eyes. He did not expect this young man to be so smart. It took only one sword move for him to reach the threshold of having no sword in his heart. He had touched the threshold of the swordless heart so quickly. Such talent was indeed top-notch. At least, he was not weaker than Bai Tao. However, it was still not enough to just touch the threshold. With a casual wave of the sword in his hand, he easily shattered Xiaochen's slash. Xiaochen was not surprised at all. This was within his expectations. Moreover, when Xiaochen slashed with his sword, he had already started the next step. He activated the sword realm to the extreme. He took a step forward and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. He directly used the boundary flash super skill. Just as he defeated Xiaochen's slash, Xiaochen suddenly appeared behind Bai Tao. However, Bai Tao seemed to have noticed it. He calmly stabbed with his sword and it collided with Xiaochen's sword. Bai Tao perfectly blocked Xiaochen's attack and smiled. You used the boundary flash well. Please add it to your collection, monthly votes, recommend it. Chapter 2469. Xiaochen's World Flash did not pose any threat to Bai Tao. At his level, World Flash had already been used to perfection. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Tao's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. He had also used World Flash. Bai Tao's World Flash was obviously much more than Xiaochen's. Of course, the difference in speed between the two was not that big. After all, World Flash was different from movement techniques. It was almost impossible to improve it. The two of them kept using World Flash in the sword realm. At the same time, the long swords in their hands kept colliding with each other. However, Xiaochen was obviously at a disadvantage every time they collided. Xiaochen was really struggling to fight with Bai Tao. Moreover, Xiaochen was constantly suppressed by Bai Tao in the sword realm. It could be said that Xiaochen was completely overwhelmed by Bai Tao even though they were at the same level. This was the first time Xiaochen had ever felt something like this from someone at the same level as him. Even the evil spirits did not give Xiaochen such a feeling. Of course, the biggest difference between the two of them was undoubtedly their comprehension. Although Xiaochen had touched the threshold of Swordless Heart, he had not truly achieved Swordless Heart. As a result, Xiaochen was naturally at a disadvantage in the battle with Bai Tao. When Bai Tao casually slashed with his sword, Xiaochen had to use at least 3 swords to block it. Under this situation, Xiaochen's energy consumption was naturally much higher than Bai Tao's. Moreover, he might be injured if he was not careful. However, as he fought fiercely with Bai Tao, Xiaochen gradually gained a trace of understanding in his heart. He seemed to have grasped something, but he did not know how to describe it. It was a very mysterious feeling. Bai Tao also felt the change in Xiaochen. This was the precursor of breaking through Swordless Heart. Xiaochen had already touched the threshold of having no sword in his heart. At this moment, Xiaochen's sword had clearly changed from before. Every slash of his sword was no longer as sharp as before. On the contrary, it was more restrained. Of course, it was not that easy to break through the level of Swordless Heart. Xiaochen was still a step away because Xiaochen had not truly reached the state of Swordless Heart and Selfless Self. When Xiaochen truly forgot the swordsmanship in his mind and the sword in his heart, he would have truly broken through the Swordless Heart. But now, Xiaochen was still a little bit away from that. Only by forgetting the swordsmanship he had learned and breaking these inherent shackles could he achieve the state of having no sword in his heart. By then, Xiaochen would no longer need any swordsmanship. Just like Bai Tao, there was no pattern to his sword at all. It was not a swordsmanship at all. In other words, every slash of Bai Tao's sword was a swordsmanship that followed his heart. A smirk was seen in Bai Tao's eyes as he fought with Xiaochen. However, Bai Tao did not use any killing moves from beginning to end, as he was deliberately complying with Xiaochen's breakthrough to the level of having no sword in his heart. Most of the time, Bai Tao was like a teacher, personally demonstrating and guiding Xiaochen to touch the threshold of the swordless heart, to comprehend the state of selflessness and selflessness. The battle between the two was not so much a challenge, but a great opportunity given by Bai Tao to Xiaochen. Bai Tao must have done this because of the immortal demon order. Although he did not know why Bai Tao and the other three were on the immortal demon road, it must be related to Mu Ling Xian. In this case, Bai Tao should value the immortal demon order very much. Xiaochen had the immortal demon order, so he was naturally different from the others. Secondly, it was Xiaochen himself. Xiaochen was also a swordsman, and while he was young, he was extremely talented. He had relied on his talent in battle to reach the threshold of having no sword in his heart. Such talent made Bai Tao feel a sense of appreciation for such a talent. Because of these 2 points, Bai Tao was willing to guide Xiaochen and was willing to give Xiaochen such a good fortune. Of course, whether he could succeed in breaking through the swordless heart in the end would depend on Xiaochen's own perception and talent. Bai Tao continued to exchange swords with Xiaochen. The strength of Bai Tao's sword was just right, so that Xiaochen could clearly feel what the swordless heart should be like. In the beginning, Xiaochen deliberately tried to comprehend Bai Tao's sword, but Bai Tao said indifferently, "You don't have to deliberately comprehend it. The swordless heart is about the state of selflessness and selflessness. Relax your mind and let nature take its course." The swordless heart was not forcibly comprehended. One had to learn to let go of everything. After hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen also gave up on comprehending it. However, because of this, the sword in Xiaochen's hand was getting closer to the swordless heart level. Under Bai Tao's deliberate guidance, Xiaochen also began to transform and sublimate. In other words, Xiaochen's swordsmanship had transformed and sublimated. Xiaochen could no longer remember the swordsmanship in his mind. When he attacked, he could no longer follow those rules and regulations. Instead, he could do it casually. This was one of the characteristics of the swordless heart. After all, no matter how strong the swordsmanship was, there would always be a limit. And this limit was like a wall for a sword cultivator, a wall that prevented one from reaching the peak. Only by breaking this wall and walking out of the restrictions of the inherent swordsmanship could one truly complete the transformation. Without restrictions, one would be the strongest. A truly powerful sword cultivator did not need any swordsmanship, because their casual attack was enough to be regarded as the strongest swordsmanship in the world. This was what it meant to return to one's natural state. No longer bound by the restrictions of the previous swordsmanship, Xiaochen's every attack could be said to be without any rules or regulations. It could also be said to be extremely exquisite. He gradually forgot about the swordsmanship in his heart and gradually forgot about himself. Everything was done instinctively. Feeling the change in Xiaochen, the smile in Bai Tao's eyes deepened. He nodded slightly. Xiaochen's progress was faster than he had expected. Now, it could be said that he had already crossed the threshold of the swordless heart level. It seemed that he should give Xiaochen some pressure so that he could really take that last half step. Thinking of this, Bai Tao slashed out with his sword. Bai Tao suppressed his cultivation to the half-step emperor realm, but he did not hold back at all. Compared to before, the power of Bai Tao's sword had increased by several times. At the same time, as the sword swept out, Bai Tao said with a smile, "Take this sword, and this battle will be considered a victory for you." Bai Tao's sword was forcing Xiaochen to take that last half-step and truly enter the threshold of the swordless heart level. It was a sword without the slightest sharpness. Facing Bai Tao's sword, Xiaochen did not choose to dodge. At the same time, Xiaochen did not answer Bai Tao's words, as if he did not hear him at all. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 2470. In the face of Bai Tao's sword, Xiaochen did not dodge nor did he have any intention of replying. It was as if he did not hear Bai Tao's words at all. At the same time, when Bai Tao's sword was about to attack Xiaochen, Xiaochen also slashed out with his sword. Just like Bai Tao, it looked like a simple sword without the slightest power. It was not as sharp as before. However, when he saw Xiaochen's sword, Bai Tao's eyes flashed with amazement. No sword in the heart. Xiaochen had finally taken the last step and successfully reached the state of no sword in the heart. The two swords collided fiercely. This time, they were not directly crushed like before. On the contrary, Xiaochen's sword and Bai Tao's sword were evenly matched. Although Bai Tao still had the upper hand, it was undeniable that Xiaochen's sword was no longer the same as before. Looking at Xiaochen's sword, Bai Tao nodded in satisfaction. At the same time, he became more and more interested in Xiaochen. He did not expect this kid to be so talented. From Bai Tao's point of view, Xiaochen had almost caught up with Mu Lingxian in all other aspects, regardless of strength and cultivation level. Who was Mu Lingxian? He was the world lord of the Hongmeng world. Back then, Bai Tao and the other three were defeated by Mu Lingxian. It could be said that Mu Lingxian had completely stepped on the four of them to become the world lord. Although he had been defeated by Mu Lingxian, Bai Tao did not have much hatred for Mu Lingxian. On the contrary, he had a trace of admiration because Mu Lingxian was indeed amazing. Bai Tao was also willing to be defeated by him. In Bai Tao's opinion, Xiaochen was completely capable of competing with Mu Lingxian in the future. In other words, Mu Lingxian's position as the world lord was going to be challenged in the future. Bai Tao naturally did not know that Xiaochen was not from the Hongmeng world, but from the Great Thousand world. In Bai Tao's opinion, with Xiaochen's talent, as long as he did not die, he would definitely be able to compete with Mu Lingxian in the future. The two swords collided. In the end, although Bai Tao was slightly better and defeated Xiaochen's sword, Xiaochen's second sword also shattered Bai Tao's sword. Xiaochen was able to block Bai Tao's all-out attack with just two swords. This was something that Xiaochen would not have been able to do in the past. However, after making a breakthrough in the way of the sword, Xiaochen had succeeded in doing so. At the same time, Xiaochen's comprehension of the way of the sword had also risen to a whole new level. It was completely different from before. At this moment, Xiaochen could be considered a top swordsman in the universe. Only the top group of sword cultivators could break through the swordless heart state. This was also one of the symbolic characteristics of many sword cultivators. Of course, above the swordless heart state, there was the sword principle godhood state. However, that step was too difficult. Even people like Bai Tao and Qin Feng could not do it now. Although they had been immersed in the swordless heart state for many years, it was very difficult to break through to the sword principle godhood state. It could even be said that there was no possibility. This was no longer something that could be achieved with talent and hard work. It was more likely that it depended on opportunity and luck. Of course, the sword principle godhood state was still too far away from Xiaochen. After all, Xiaochen had just broken through the swordless heart state and had not had the time to completely stabilize it. Bai Tao did not continue to attack after his sword was successfully blocked by Xiaochen. The long sword in his hand slowly dissipated as he looked at Xiaochen with a smile. Not bad. You've won this battle. Hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen cupped his hands and bowed. Thank you for your guidance, senior. Bai Tao had indeed been guiding Xiaochen most of the time in this battle. Without Bai Tao's guidance, it would not have been so easy for Xiaochen to break through the swordless heart state. Therefore, Xiaochen was still grateful to Bai Tao. In response, Bai Tao merely smiled and waved his hand nonchalantly. Don't be happy too early. I've already said earlier that if you want to pass this test, you have to defeat 2 out of the 4 of us. As for the other 3, their tempers aren't as good as mine. Xiaochen had only defeated Bai Tao, which was not considered a real success. Xiaochen still needed to defeat at least one more person. Bai Tao knew the tempers of the other 3 very well, and it was obvious that they were not as good-tempered as Bai Tao. Bai Tao reminded Xiaochen. As soon as he finished his words, one of the remaining 3 golden statues began to tremble violently. Soon, cracks spread all over the statue. Then, the statue shattered and a young man who looked like Bai Tao appeared in front of Xiaochen. The feeling he gave off was completely different from Bai Tao. This young man was wearing a purple gold robe, giving off a domineering feeling that he was looking down on the world. It was impossible for people to look at him directly. As soon as he appeared, there was an overwhelming pressure pressing towards Xiaochen. Looking at the young man, Bai Tao laughed. Dijun, little guy, you're really unlucky. He is stubborn and will not go easy on you. While Bai Tao was speaking, Dijun had already arrived in front of Xiaochen. He snorted and said, "You still talk so much nonsense." After saying that, he ignored Bai Tao and turned to look at Xiaochen. He said coldly, "My name is Dijun cut the crap. If you want to pass, you have to defeat me. But I'm not Bai Tao. I won't go easy on you. If you can't beat me, I'll definitely kill you here." After saying that, Dijun threw out a punch without giving Xiaochen a chance to reply. The aura of the fist appeared all of a sudden, giving off a domineering aura that seemed capable of splitting the sky with a single punch. Xiaochen reacted quickly, lashing out with his sword right away. However, when the fist and sword collided, Xiaochen was sent flying backward. Dijun had indeed only used his half-step Emperor Realm cultivation. But as Bai Tao said, Dijun was not a person who would go easy on Xiaochen, let alone instruct Xiaochen like Bai Tao. Dijun used his full strength right from the start. After sending Xiaochen flying, Dijun had no intention of stopping. He took a step forward and his figure disappeared in an instant. Unlike Xiaochen and Bai Tao, Dijun did not have a special physique like sword body. Therefore, Dijun did not comprehend world force. Naturally, he could not use world flash. However, even without world flash, Dijun's speed was extremely fast. Xiaochen did not dare to hesitate and directly used sword realm. At the same time, he used world flash to escape from Dijun's pursuit. Sword body, sword realm at the grand perfection stage, world flash. Not bad. But do you really think you're foolproof with world flash? Dijun's expression remained unchanged after Xiaochen successfully escaped from his pursuit. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 2471. Finishing his words, Emperor Jun took a step forward and tore the void apart violently, disappearing from sight. Finishing his words, Emperor Jun took a step forward and tore the void apart violently, disappearing from sight. Dijun's movement was violent and direct. It was as if he had smashed the space and rushed into the void like a tyrannosaurus. Xiaochen, who had been dodging with the realm flash, was stunned by Emperor Jun's actions. Xiaochen could tell at a glance that Emperor Jun had only used his physical strength. He had not used any spiritual power at all. In other words, Emperor Jun had only relied on his physical strength to directly smash the space. He had never thought that there would be someone in the world who could do such a thing. How far had he cultivated his physical body to be able to do this? Moreover, because of Dijun's unique method and his powerful physical body, his speed wasn't slow at all even though he didn't control boundary energy and didn't know how to use boundary flash. While Xiaochen was in a daze, Emperor Jun had appeared behind Xiaochen and said coldly, "It's not a good habit to be distracted during a battle." Saying this, Emperor Jun directly punched Xiaochen's back without waiting for Xiaochen's reply. In the face of Dijun's fierce punch, Xiaochen's first reaction was not to take it head-on. He dodged to the side and barely dodged Dijun's attack. However, Dijun did not intend to stop at all. Instead, he rushed forward and entangled Xiaochen in an instant. Even though Xiaochen had the boundary flash, he was completely entangled by Dijun. There was no chance for him to extricate himself. Emperor Jun was indeed different from Bai Tao. Xiaochen also felt great pressure from Emperor Jun. His physical body, which he had always been proud of, was completely at a disadvantage in front of Emperor Jun. Originally, Xiao Chen's tempered battle body had broken through the 4th level of the Undying Realm after cultivating in the source of spiritual qi. His physical body had already reached a terrifying level. However, compared with Emperor Jun's, it was nothing. It was certain that Emperor Jun's physical body was the strongest that Xiao Chen had ever seen in his life. No one could surpass him. It was hard to imagine how Emperor Jun had cultivated his physical body to such a level. Moreover, Xiao Chen also found that Emperor Jun did not seem to have cultivated any sword principle or saber principle at all. He was fighting with his iron fists. There was no strategy to speak of in the battle at all. It was a stance of pushing all the way to the end, and was completely unafraid of any head-on clashes. The pressure was huge. Unlike Bai Tao, Emperor Jun did not hold back at all. Under Emperor Jun's fierce attacks, Xiao Chen finally showed a trace of fatigue. Emperor Jun seized the opportunity and punched Xiao Chen's left shoulder fiercely. From the beginning to the end, Emperor Jun had suppressed his cultivation to the level of a half-step Emperor Realm Master. However, after being hit by Emperor Jun, a terrifying force instantly swept through Xiao Chen's body. At the same time, Xiao Chen's entire left arm was directly shattered by this force. Even with Xiao Chen's physical strength, there was no way for him to withstand Emperor Jun's blow. Xiao Chen's entire left arm was shattered. Enduring the severe pain, Xiao Chen operated his tempered battle body and his left arm was quickly regenerated. Although such an injury was not fatal for the current Xiao Chen, it was just an ordinary punch from Emperor Jun. An ordinary punch was already so powerful, and this time it only hit his left shoulder. If Di Jun's fist had hit his chest or head, it would be hard to say what would have happened. Regenerating a severed limb. Your physical body is not bad, but it's a pity that it's still too fragile, Emperor Jun praised softly as he watched Xiao Chen's left arm regenerate. Xiao Chen's physical body was not bad. After all, there were not many people who could regenerate a severed limb, let alone someone like Xiao Chen who could recover it in an instant. It could be seen that Xiao Chen had also cultivated a powerful body-refining secret art. However, Emperor Jun did not stop. He did not give Xiao Chen a chance to react at all. Obviously, he did not want to give Xiao Chen a chance to catch his breath. Facing Emperor Jun's second attack, Xiao Chen had no choice but to bite the bullet and contend with him. Xiao Chen had fully understood the difference in physical strength between the two of them, so he wisely chose not to fight Di Jun head-on. Obviously, it would be unwise for Xiao Chen to fight Emperor Jun head-on when there was such a huge gap between their physical bodies. Xiao Chen's advantage was his sword body. Xiao Chen possessed sword body, sword realm, and realm flash. It could be said that he was favored by God. On the other hand, Emperor Jun did not possess any special physique and could not comprehend the power of realm, let alone use realm flash. Therefore, this was Xiao Chen's advantage. Moreover, Xiao Chen could only use realm flash to contend with Emperor Jun. This was the only way Xiao Chen could win. Xiao Chen was very clear about this. Bai Tao smiled and nodded as he watched the two of them fighting fiercely. This guy is smart. He knows where his advantage lies. He's courting death if he goes head-on against Di Jun. Speaking of this, Bai Tao's eyes flashed with admiration as he looked at Emperor Jun. Among the 4 Divine Realm experts, Emperor Jun could be said to be an extremely unique existence. This was because Bai Tao, Fan Tian, and Xue Qin all possessed special physiques and were extremely talented. Therefore, it was not strange that the 3 of them could become the 4 Divine Realm experts. However, Emperor Jun was different. He was very talented and did not possess any special physique. It could be said that Emperor Jun was the most ordinary existence in the vast universe. However, such a person had climbed to the peak step by step through his own efforts. In the end, he was called the 4 Divine Realm experts together with Bai Tao and the other 2, becoming a legend in the primordial world. In Bai Tao's era, many people said that Emperor Jun was the weakest existence among the 4 Divine Realm experts. This was because Emperor Jun was not as talented as Bai Tao, Fan Tian, and Fan Tian. Therefore, many people felt that Emperor Jun was the weakest among the 4 Divine Realm experts. However, Bai Tao, Fan Tian, and Fan Tian did not dare to talk about this evaluation. Even Mu Lingxian had said it personally. Emperor Jun is the weakest existence among the 4 Divine Realm experts. This is because his talent is mediocre and he does not have any special physique. However, he is also the strongest among the 4 Divine Realm experts. The weakest was also the strongest. This was Mu Lingxian's evaluation of Emperor Jun. Bai Tao, Fan Tian, and Xue Qin agreed with this evaluation. Emperor Jun was indeed worthy of the title of the 4 Divine Realm experts. Even Bai Tao, Fan Tian, and Xue Qin did not dare to underestimate his strength. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2472. Di Jun had ordinary talent and no special constitution. However, he had relied on his own efforts to become one of the 4 Divine Realm experts in the primordial world. Di Jun had ordinary talent and no special constitution. However, he had relied on his own efforts to become one of the 4 Divine Realm experts in the primordial world. Moreover, Di Jun's body was undoubtedly the strongest among the 4 Divine Realm experts. It was hard to imagine that he could cultivate his body to such an extent. It had to be known that the cultivation of the moral body was extremely arduous. He believed that any martial artist would have a deep understanding of this. Moreover, the cultivation of the moral body was different from other kinds of cultivation. He didn't value a martial artist's talent, but rather his perseverance. One had to suffer unbearable hardships in order to achieve something in the cultivation of the body. Perhaps this was the reason why Di Jun chose to cultivate his body. Di Jun knew clearly that his talent was too weak compared to top geniuses like Bai Tao and the others. Instead of trying his best to comprehend some profound cultivation method or martial technique, he might as well find another way to cultivate his body. It was this great perseverance that allowed Di Jun to walk his own path and reach the peak of the primordial world by relying on the body refinement Tao. Bai Tao admired Di Jun from the bottom of his heart. At the same time, Bai Tao was very satisfied with Xiao Chen's performance. Xiao Chen was very smart. He knew that his body was not as strong as Di Jun's, so he made the best choice immediately. He relied on the advantage of the realm flash to fight Di Jun. However, despite Xiao Chen's cleverness, he felt rather bitter at the moment. After all, Xiao Chen's physical body had always been his advantage when it came to being at the same level as his opponent. Even when facing the evil spirits, Xiao Chen's body was stronger than his. From the moment Xiao Chen stepped onto the martial path, Xiao Chen had never slacked on the cultivation of his body. This was especially true after he had obtained the tempered battle body. Now that he was facing Di Jun, the advantage of his physical body had disappeared. Not only had he lost his advantage, but his physical strength, which he had been proud of, had also become his weakness. This caused Xiao Chen, who had never slacked off when it came to body refinement, to feel some bitterness in his heart. His advantage had suddenly turned into a disadvantage. Such a feeling was indeed difficult to accept. However, there was no other way. Di Jun's body was indeed stronger than his. Even though Xiao Chen had successfully hit Di Jun several times with Boundary Flash, such an attack couldn't do any substantial damage to Di Jun's terrifying body. It was as if Di Jun did not care about Xiao Chen's attack at all. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. If this continued, the situation would only get worse for him. Not only could Di Jun ignore his attack, but he couldn't ignore Di Jun's attack either. To put it simply, Di Jun could withstand 10 or even dozens of Xiao Chen's attacks. However, Xiao Chen would not be able to withstand even one attack from Di Jun. Therefore, if Xiao Chen made the slightest mistake and allowed Di Jun to seize the opportunity, the outcome was very likely to be decided by a single punch. This was naturally not good news for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen understood this, and a bold plan gradually formed in his mind. He had no choice but to give it a try now that things had come to this. Xiao Chen locked his gaze on Di Jun, relying on the slight advantage of the realm flash, Xiaochen changed his strategy and began to look for opportunities to attack Di Jun. Moreover, every time Xiaochen attacked, his target was Di Jun's abdomen. If one observed carefully, one wouldn't notice that Xiaochen's attack location was almost the same every time. Xiaochen felt helpless because his attack was no threat to Di Jun. In this way, Xiaochen could only aim at one spot and attack fiercely. Since the first attack didn't work, he would attack twice. If that didn't work, he would attack 3 or 4 times. Each time, he would aim at the same spot. In this way, no matter how strong Di Jun's body was, there would be a limit. Xiaochen's attack target was Di Jun's abdomen. Bai Tao and Di Jun naturally saw through Xiaochen's intention. With a faint smile on his face, Bai Tao murmured, "This guy is quite smart." Xiaochen's attack was not enough to pose any threat to Di Jun. In Bai Tao's opinion, Xiaochen's choice was the only way to break through Di Jun's defense. Compared to Bai Tao, Di Jun's eyes flashed with a strange light after he understood Xiaochen's intention. He had not expected Xiaochen to make such a choice, but he had to admit that it was the best choice. At least now, Di Jun could no longer ignore Xiaochen's attack. Every time Xiaochen attacked, Di Jun's attack would fall on the same spot. After a few times, Di Jun did not dare to be careless. Di Jun began to protect his abdomen, which was also a kind of affirmation for Xiaochen's attack. Sensing Di Jun's change, Xiaochen's confidence was greatly boosted. It seemed that he was right. Otherwise, why would Di Jun protect his abdomen intentionally? The battle continued. However, as Di Jun began to consciously protect his abdomen, Xiaochen's attack became more difficult. Even so, Xiaochen was still able to find an opportunity. Xiaochen had hit Di Jun's abdomen several times. However, as time went by, Xiaochen found that his spiritual energy was almost exhausted. On the other hand, Di Jun looked a little pale, but he was not seriously injured. This person is made of stone. I have not broken through his defense after more than 10 attacks. Di Jun's abdomen had been hit more than 10 times, but he still could not break through his defense. Now, as his spiritual energy was consumed, Xiaochen could not successfully hit Di Jun. If this continued, he would be the one to lose. Thinking of this, Xiaochen quickly made a crazy decision. He arrived in front of Di Jun with a realm flash. This time, Xiaochen did not choose to attack Di Jun. Instead, he attacked Di Jun directly. Facing Xiaochen's attack, Di Jun was stunned. However, he did not choose to dodge. Instead, he directly attacked Xiaochen. That's right. Xiaochen wanted to injure Di Jun at the cost of his own life. Although he would definitely be at a disadvantage, compared to the situation where he would definitely lose if the battle dragged on, there might be a miracle. The two collided head-on. Di Jun's fist hit Xiaochen's chest. Suddenly, the sound of bones cracking was heard. Xiaochen's sternum caved in, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. On the other hand, Xiaochen stabbed Di Jun's abdomen with his long sword. This time, Xiaochen did not hold back. His dustless sword finally pierced Di Jun's body, causing blood to gush out. Please collect, vote, recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 2473. Xiaochen knew that he would lose if the battle dragged on, so he chose to give it his all. Although Xiaochen's sternum had caved in and blood was gushing out of his mouth, Xiaochen smiled and looked at the wound on Di Jun's abdomen. Xiaochen knew that he would lose if the battle dragged on, so he chose to give it his all. Xiaochen's sternum had caved in and blood was gushing out of his mouth, but Xiaochen smiled and looked at the wound on Di Jun's abdomen. He had finally broken through Di Jun's perverted physical defense. Although such an injury was nothing serious to Di Jun, Xiaochen, who knew how powerful Di Jun's body was, could not help but feel happy. Di Jun, on the other hand, was not affected much. In the end, Di Jun still lost the battle. This was probably the first time that Xiaochen had suffered a crushing defeat in the same realm. Moreover, he did not even have the strength to fight back. Even after using all his means, he only managed to break through Di Jun's defense. Xiaochen did not intend to attack again. It was not that Xiaochen did not want to, but that he did not have the strength to do so. To everyone's surprise, Di Jun, who was injured by Xiaochen, stopped and looked at Xiaochen with a smile. "Good boy, you pass." Di Jun could have easily killed Xiaochen, but he did not choose to do so. Xiaochen was stunned, but before he could speak, Di Jun took the initiative to speak. "You've already won if you can break through my physical body." Hearing Di Jun's words, Bai Tao walked over with a smile and said, "Little boy, don't think too much. You should be proud of yourself for being able to break Di Jun's physical defense. Di Jun did not go easy on you. Di Jun did not go easy on Xiaochen. Moreover, Di Jun's physical defense was the best among the 4 heavenly gods. Xiaochen was really good for being able to break Di Jun's physical defense in the same realm. Therefore, Di Jun did not continue to attack. Although Di Jun and Bai Tao had suppressed their cultivation to the half-step Emperor realm, which was the same realm as Xiaochen, both of them were Ancestor realm masters after all. Even if they suppressed their cultivation, they still had some advantages. Therefore, it was not easy for Xiaochen to achieve this. Along with Bai Tao's words, a white light descended from the sky. Under the white light, Xiaochen's injuries began to heal quickly. In less than 10 breaths of time, he had completely recovered. After recovering from his injuries, Xiaochen's face became rosy again. He cupped his hands and bowed to Bai Tao and Di Jun. "Many thanks, Senior." Xiaochen acknowledged the strength of Bai Tao and Di Jun. The two of them waved their hands carelessly. Di Jun even said bluntly, "Don't worry, Bai Tao. If you did not have the immortal demon token with you, you would have been dead by now. I don't even need to do anything." Di Jun glanced at Bai Tao as he spoke. His meaning was obvious. He was doing all this for the sake of the immortal demon token. Bai Tao did not refute Di Jun's words. Instead, he turned to look at Xiaochen and said, "Little boy, are you a disciple of Immortal Palace? It seems that Mu Ling Xian thinks highly of you. He even gave you the immortal demon token." Hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen shook his head and said, "Senior, you misunderstand. I'm not a disciple of Immortal Palace." "Huh? You're not? Then what about your immortal demon token?" Bai Tao was stunned and asked in confusion. Since Xiaochen was not a disciple of Immortal Palace, how did he get the immortal demon token? Would Mu Ling Xian give the immortal demon token to someone else so casually? In response to Bai Tao's question, Xiaochen did not hide the truth. He told Bai Tao and Di Jun the whole story, including the fact that he was not from Hongmeng World and came from the Great Thousand World. After hearing Xiaochen's story, Bai Tao and Di Jun's expressions became interesting. At the same time, the other 2 statues shook violently. Then, the other 2 divine gods, Fan Tian and Xue Qin, appeared in front of Xiaochen. When the 2 of them appeared, they immediately looked at Xiaochen. Obviously, the 2 of them were very interested in Xiaochen. In other words, they were not interested in Xiaochen, but in the Great Thousand World. People like Bai Tao and the others were already existences that stood at the peak of the primordial world. In the entire primordial world, there were very few people that could threaten them. Therefore, for a long time, the 4 of them couldn't help but feel lonely and helpless. When they heard about the appearance of another universe, the 4 of them were naturally interested. They could not wait to go to the Great Thousand World and fight with the experts of the Great Thousand World. Di Jun was especially excited. After all, Di Jun was a warmonger. After hearing about the Great Thousand World, Di Jun was stunned for a moment. Then, he said with a fighting spirit, "Great Thousand World? Little boy, how is your Great Thousand World? Is it a complete universe like Hongmeng World? How are the experts? Are there more of them than in Hongmeng World?" Di Jun asked a series of questions. Hearing this, Xiaochen shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Senior, the Great Thousand World is indeed a complete universe like Hongmeng World. Its area is not smaller than Hongmeng World. However, compared to Hongmeng World, the martial way in the Great Thousand World can be said to be extremely withered. The strongest expert is only at the half-step ancestor realm, and no world lord has been born. Xiaochen truthfully told Di Jun and the other three about the situation of the Great Thousand World. He was not afraid that Di Jun and the other three would have any ideas about the Great Thousand World. He could tell that the four of them did not pay much attention to these things. To put it bluntly, the reason why Di Jun was so eager to fight was only because he wanted to fight with the experts of the Great Thousand World. It was very simple, and he did not have any other intentions. After hearing Xiaochen's words, a look of disappointment immediately appeared on Di Jun's face. So weak? Obviously, the strength of the Great Thousand World made Di Jun very disappointed. The strongest expert in a complete universe was only at the half-step ancestor realm. They were not on the same level at all. Given Di Jun's strength and cultivation, he naturally looked down on the half-step ancestor realm. With such a cultivation realm, Di Jun did not even want to take action. Seeing the disappointment on Di Jun's face, Xiaochen paused and said, "However, I am not the only one in Hongmeng World. There is also an expert from another universe called the Great World. He is now a guest in Immortal Palace, and the World Lord of the other side has come in person." Di Jun and the others had been on the Immortal Demon Road, so they were naturally unaware of what had happened in the outside world. They also did not know about the appearance of the Great World. Hearing this, the four of them were taken aback. Di Jun looked at Xiaochen with a face full of joy. "Boy, you're not lying, right? Is there really a world lord from another universe in Hongmeng World? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation." Chapter 2474. Hearing Xiaochen talking about the Cloud Palace, Di Jun suddenly became spirited. After all, the World Lord of another world had come. This was indeed something that Di Jun did not expect. He did not expect the outside world to be so lively. Looking at Di Jun's appearance, it seemed that he could not wait to go out and fight with the people of the Cloud Palace. Xiaochen said helplessly, "Junior naturally does not dare to lie. However, for seniors, you only have a wisp of remnant soul left. Do you still want to find someone to compare notes with? Haven't you all fallen?" Looking at the appearance of Di Jun and the other three, Xiaochen naturally thought that they were dead. However, hearing this, Di Jun was not happy and immediately said with a cold face, "Boy, who told you that I'm dead? N? Not dead?" Hearing Di Jun's words, Xiaochen looked at Di Jun suspiciously. Only a wisp of remnant soul was left. He did not even have a physical body. How could he say that he was not dead? Fan Tian said with a smile when he saw the suspicion on Xiaochen's face. "Well, this boy doesn't know about the Immortal Demon Road. It's pardonable." Hearing Fan Tian's words, Xiaochen felt that the Immortal Demon Road did not seem to be that simple. For a long time, the Immortal Demon Road had been controlled by the Immortal Palace. To the outside world, it was only claimed that it was used to redress the grievances of the disciples who violated the sect rules. There was nothing special about it. Therefore, all along, the people of the Hongmeng world did not pay much attention to the Immortal Demon Road. However, after seeing Bai Tao and the other three, Xiaochen always felt that it was strange. If the Immortal Demon Road was really as simple as it seemed on the surface, it would not leave behind a wisp of remnant soul. Moreover, the way to pass the first test of the illusion was very strange. Thinking of the first test of the environment, Xiaochen was even more certain of his suspicions. At the same time, Xueqin also said with a smile, "Little guy, it seems that you also understand something. Was the first test of the environment strange?" Hearing Xueqin's words, Xiaochen nodded in agreement. It was indeed very strange. It was not that the illusion was strange, but the method to break the illusion was somewhat strange. After successfully passing the first trial, Xiaochen already knew that if he wanted to pass the first trial, he had to possess the Immortal Devil Token. To put it bluntly, the Immortal Devil Token was the only way to pass through the illusion. Without the immortal devil token, no matter how strong one's state of mind was, as long as one's cultivation hadn't reached the ancestor realm, it was impossible to break through the illusion. To put it bluntly, this immortal demon road didn't seem to allow people to successfully pass through. Everyone who entered the immortal demon road died in the first illusion. This was because only those who made mistakes would enter the immortal demon road. Who the hell would have an immortal demon order on their body? Seeing Xiaochen nod, Xueqin and the other three smiled. Dijun also pouted and said, "This immortal demon road is not a road to redress injustice, heh." Obviously, the world had been deceived. How could the immortal demon road be so simple? Hearing Dijun's words, Xiaochen was even more confused. But obviously, the four didn't seem to want to explain too much to Xiaochen. Bai Tao promptly interrupted, "Okay, let's not talk about this. Little guy, it's meaningless for you to know too much about the immortal demon road. Since you can come here and hold the immortal devil token, it's understandable that the four of us give you an opportunity." Directly skipping the matter of the immortal demon road, Bai Tao's voice fell. Beside him, Fan Tian and Xueqin nodded in agreement. Even Dijun didn't say anything, tacitly agreeing. Seeing this, Bai Tao gently pointed his finger, and a ball of golden liquid appeared in front of Xiaochen. It looked like water, but it shone with a golden light, giving off an extraordinary feeling. Bai Tao didn't know what this golden liquid was, but he said to Xiaochen with a smile, "Go, according to what we said before, this thing can help you break through to the Emperor realm. Just cultivate here with peace of mind." Hearing Bai Tao's words, Xiaochen didn't say much and nodded. He then cupped his hands and thanked the four of them before entering the golden liquid. Xiaochen sat cross-legged with his eyes closed while being enveloped by the golden liquid. His eyes narrowed slightly. At the same time, Xiaochen felt that the golden liquid was flowing into his body of its own accord, passing through countless pores all over his body. Moreover, he didn't need to take the initiative to refine it at all. It just flowed directly in his meridians. Sure enough, it was a treasure. In the outside world, seeing Xiaochen enter his cultivation, Fan Tian and Xueqin both looked at Bai Tao and said, "You are so generous this time. So much ancestral spirit qi, and you gave it away just like that. Yeah, usually, you are reluctant to take out even a little bit." Hearing Fan Tian and Xueqin's words, Bai Tao also said with a smile, "This little guy is good. Moreover, the Great Thousand World doesn't have a world master yet, so it's not a big deal to help him. You really think highly of this little guy. How can it be so easy to become a world master? A complete universe would rather be empty than make up the number. If he doesn't meet the requirements, the heavens and earth won't recognize him," Fan Tian said with a smile. "Who knows, but I think it's very possible," Bai Tao replied with a smile. Xiaochen naturally didn't hear the conversation between the four of them, but Dijun, who was beside him, said with a solemn look, "Yeah, the ancestral land is peaceful now. I guess there will be a big shuffle this time." Saying so, Dijun gently waved his hand, and a cloud of blood qi directly entered the golden liquid. Seeing Dijun's action, Bai Tao and the other two were stunned, then shook their heads with a wry smile. "You're even more generous than Bai Tao," Dijun said with a smile. The three of them knew very well that the cloud of blood qi that entered the ancestral spiritual qi was Dijun's essence blood. Dijun was a complete ancestral realm expert who specialized in refining his body, so his essence blood was extremely precious. Putting everything else aside, just Dijun's essence blood alone was enough to let Xiaochen's physical body reach a new level. They didn't expect Dijun to be so generous. It was obvious that Emperor Jun wanted to give Xiaochen a helping hand so that he could make great progress in his physical body. Facing the other three shock, Dijun smiled indifferently. "I also think this little guy is good. Moreover, there hasn't been a new member in the ancestral land for a long time. If this little guy can become the world master of the Great Thousand World, it should be very interesting." While the four of them were chatting, their faces suddenly froze. After exchanging glances with each other, they disappeared from their original spots one after another. No one knew where the four of them went, but judging from their expressions, they seemed to have encountered something very important. Otherwise, their faces wouldn't have become so solemn in an instant. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2475. The four of them disappeared at the same time. At the same time, Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun, who were in the outside world, also felt the summons. Lin Yun leaned against the recliner in his residence and revealed a faint smile. These old fellows really can't sit still. Lin Yuan asked when he heard Lin Yun's words, "Big brother, is it about that side?" "Yes, don't worry about him." Lin Yun nodded. No one knew how big and vast this world was. However, many universes knew that there was a place in this world called the Origin World. It was also known as the Ancestral Land. This was the origin of the universe. It was said that the Origin World had allowed it to exist when the world was first created. As the origin of all universes, the Origin World's position in this world was naturally extremely important. Naturally, the various universes attached great importance to the Origin World. However, not every universe could be connected to the Origin World. Only the birth of a World Lord was qualified to come into contact with the Origin World. Therefore, the cultivators of the vast thousand worlds never knew that there was such a place in this world. At this moment, in a corner of the Origin World, there was a simple and magnificent palace. The palace didn't look special, but the aura it emitted made people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze. It was very comfortable. However, there were nearly 100 experts gathered in the palace. They all came from different universes. Among them, Bai Tao, Di Jun, Fan Tian, and Shui Qin were among them. Almost every one of them was at the Ancestor Realm Great Perfection. Bai Tao and the other three were the representatives of the Primordial World. On the side of the Great World, there was a middle-aged couple who were also at the Ancestor Realm Great Perfection. These two were Lin Yun's parents, Lin Xiaotian and Zhang Jingxiang. Everyone had gathered because they had received the summons. In fact, everyone in the Primordial World had a wrong understanding of the Immortal Demon Road. The Immortal Demon Road was made up by the Immortal Palace. The Immortal Demon Road only existed for one purpose, which was to connect to the Origin World. Not only did the Primordial World have the Immortal Demon Road, but the Great World also had such a road that connected to the Origin World. It was built by the Origin World. Any universe that had been recognized by the Origin World would have such a path to connect to the Origin World. The martial artists of the Grand Mist World simply didn't know the secrets of the Immortal Demon Road. But at this time, the people of the various universes had gathered together. It was clear that something important was happening. It was difficult for ordinary warriors to know about the Origin World. However, after everyone had gathered and waited for a long time, an illusory figure finally appeared in the hall. His face could not be seen clearly. His entire body was shrouded in white light, giving off an illusory feeling. As soon as the figure appeared, everyone shifted their attention to her. In response, the white illusory figure spoke in a hoarse voice. "Dear emissaries, please inform the World Lords to gather at the Alliance." It was a simple sentence. The illusory figure did not wait for anyone to reply as it directly disappeared. Everyone's expression changed slightly when they saw the illusory figure disappear. What was the Alliance trying to do by suddenly gathering the World Lords of the various universes? Everyone present was the emissaries of the various universes in the Origin World. Under normal circumstances, the World Lords of the various universes would rarely go to the Origin World. This was because the Origin World situation was a little special. If a World Lord suddenly came to the Origin World, it might cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, if there was nothing special, the World Lords of the various universes would rarely appear in the Origin World. But this time, the old fellows of the Alliance had suddenly gathered the World Lords. It was obviously a little abnormal. However, the old fellows had already left, so there was nothing they could do. After a moment of silence, they all disappeared from the hall. the atmosphere in the origin world had become a little strange during this time. It seemed very calm on the surface, but in fact, there were turbulent undercurrents. Ordinary warriors might not know much about the situation in the origin world, but the Ancestor Realm experts knew very well that the origin world was the origin of countless universes. It was actually a turbulent place. Moreover, as the origin of the universe, the origin world could be said to control almost all the resources in the universe. This included spirit energy, mountains, rivers, and so on. To put it bluntly, the formation of the various universes was a gift from the origin world. However, such a gift was not endless. Some universes were very strong, had dense spirit energy, and beautiful mountains. These were the gifts the origin world had given them. However, some universes were very weak, had thin spirit energy, and could not even give birth to life. They were just desolate places. These universes could be identified as universes abandoned by the origin world. Therefore, the origin world was an extremely important existence to any universe. In the origin world, there were a total of 2 camps. The Alliance of the Righteous Path and the Dark Era. It was very difficult to find out how these 2 camps were formed. However, one thing was certain. These 2 camps were completely opposite. Moreover, both sides had been constantly fighting for control of the origin world. Moreover, these 2 alliances were formed by numerous universes. They were extremely powerful. Among them, the primordial world and the great world belonged to the Alliance of the Righteous Path. In this alliance, there were currently 18 universes united. In fact, there was no choice between these 2 camps. The Righteous Path cultivators would definitely join the Alliance of the Righteous Path, while the so-called Evil Path cultivators and Demon cultivators would join the Dark Era. Looking at the numerous universes in the universe, not every universe was controlled by the Righteous Path cultivators. Many universes were controlled by the Evil Path cultivators and Demon cultivators. The Evil Path cultivators and Demon cultivators could also become world lords. This was the fundamental reason why the 2 camps in the origin world were opposing each other. As the saying went, those who walked different paths could not make plans together. Therefore, the Alliance of the Righteous Path and the Dark Era had been fighting openly and secretly for countless years in the origin world in order to completely control the origin world and then dominate the entire universe. This time, the Righteous Path Alliance had suddenly called the World Masters. It was obvious that something big had happened. After leaving the origin world and returning to the Immortal Demon Road, Baitao and the others frowned slightly. Among them, Brahma said indifferently. Brahma frowned and said, "I'm afraid something big is going to happen this time." "I guess so." "I just don't know what it is," Xueqin said when she heard that. After hearing their words, Baitao looked thoughtfully at Xiaochen, who was in the ancestral spirit chi. For some reason, Baitao felt that the incident in the origin world this time might be related to Xiaochen or the Great Thousand Worlds. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2476. Baitao looked at Xiaochen, who was cultivating with his eyes closed in the ancestral spirit chi. He didn't know why, but he felt that this matter was related to the vast thousand world. Baitao looked at Xiaochen, who was cultivating with his eyes closed in the ancestral spiritual chi. For some reason, he felt that this matter seemed to have something to do with the Great Thousand World. He had heard Xiaochen briefly talk about the situation in the vast thousand world, so he knew that the vast thousand world was currently experiencing a war between good and evil. Could it be that the war in the vast thousand world had already attracted the attention of those old fellows in the origin world? Were the Alliance of the Righteous Path and the Dark Age planning to intervene? After all, both the Alliance of the Righteous Path and the Dark Age were constantly trying their best to strengthen their forces. The simplest way to strengthen their forces was naturally to support their own universes. With more universes joining their camp, their strength would naturally become stronger. The battle between the good and evil in the great wide world was naturally the best choice. The Dark Age would definitely support the evil path, but the Alliance of the Righteous Path would obviously not sit idly by. After all, once the evil path won, the vast thousand world would definitely belong to the Dark Age's camp. After all, the evil path cultivators could only choose the Dark Age. Even if they chose the Alliance of the Righteous Path, the Alliance of the Righteous Path would absolutely not agree. Bai Tao thought to himself. It had to be said that Bai Tao's guess was very accurate and could almost be said to be the correct answer. At this moment, in the Alliance of the Righteous Path in the Origin World, there was a simple courtyard. This courtyard gave off a very strange feeling. The surroundings were shrouded in thick white mist, and it was impossible to see the scenery inside. In a pavilion in the middle of a man-made lake in the courtyard, two illusory figures were sitting opposite each other. Obviously, these two figures weren't their real bodies. They looked somewhat similar to soul clones, but they weren't exactly soul clones. Are you sure the Dark Age wants to intervene? At this moment, one of them asked faintly. It was impossible to see their faces clearly, and it was even difficult to distinguish whether they were men or women. Even their voices were blurry to others. After one of them spoke, the other person said, "It's basically confirmed, so we have to prepare as soon as possible." Yes. Although the Great Thousand World is only a low-level existence among the many universes and it doesn't even have the qualification to contact the Origin World, the war between the good and evil is a little troublesome. Moreover, the Great Thousand World is qualified to have a World Master, but no World Master has appeared yet. Thus, to some extent, the Great Thousand World has great potential. Thus, we can't give it up easily. Just as Bai Tao had guessed, the Alliance of the Righteous Tao and the Dark Age had indeed made a big move because of the matter of the Great Thousand Domains. The Righteous Path Alliance had summoned all the World Lords to the primordial world. The news was quickly sent to the World Lords. In Immortal Palace, after receiving the news from Bai Tao and the other three, Mu Lingxian said with a smile. Those old fogies of the Alliance, haha, as the World Lord of the primordial world, Mu Lingxian naturally couldn't be absent from the Alliance. After all, joining the Alliance of the Righteous Tao had given the primordial world many benefits, but at the same time, they had to bear the corresponding responsibilities. This was a very normal exchange. It wasn't just Mu Lingxian. After Lin Yan received the news, he smiled faintly and didn't say anything. In the primordial world, in the main hall of the Alliance of the Righteous Tao, there was a statue of each of the 18 World Lords in the Alliance. The statues weren't big, but each of them was lifelike. At this moment, these statues, which didn't look special at all, seemed to have come to life. In fact, each of these 18 statues was engraved with countless talisman formations and was closely connected to the 18 World Lords. Each World Lord had their own corresponding statue, and every time the Alliance gathered, the World Lords could connect to the statues through the talisman formations. This way, it was convenient for everyone, and they didn't have to go to the primordial world personally. With the arrival of the World Lords, the 18 statues seemed to have come to life. Sigh, we haven't been summoned for a long time. What's the matter this time? One of the World Lords said with a smile. It shouldn't be a small matter for all of us to be summoned, right? Another World Lord said. The World Lords chatted with each other, but they didn't have to wait for long. Accompanied by a flash of white light, the white shadow from before appeared in the main hall. Looking at the appearance of this white virtual shadow, the various World Lords who were present also called out with a chuckle, "Yo, old Huang is here personally. Seems like this matter is probably very serious." The World Overlords recognized the newcomer's identity immediately. The ancestral World Overlord, the white phantom known as Elder Huang, no longer treated Bai Tao and the others as solemnly as before. After all, to put it bluntly, although Elder Huang had a high status in the Alliance of the Righteous Paths, the World Lords present weren't simple characters either. It could even be said that everyone present was a legend of their generation. Their relationship with the Alliance was more of a cooperation. Everyone took what they needed, and at the same time, they also worked together to fight against the Dark Age. Hearing the teasing of everyone present, Elder Huang chuckled and said, "It's indeed not a small matter. It's about a matter called the Great Thousand World." The Great Thousand World? Hearing Elder Huang's words, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian were stunned. Then, after Elder Huang briefly explained the matter, Mu Lingxian laughed and said, "Haha, it seems like Elder Huang doesn't know. Haha, it seems like old Huang still doesn't know. Coincidentally, there are cultivators from the Great Thousand World in my primordial world. People from the Great Thousand World were in the Hongmeng world?" Hearing this, Elder Huang was stunned, but he quickly recovered and said, "If that's the case, it's much more convenient. Why don't we leave this matter to the Hongmeng world? It just so happens that Lin Yun is also in the Hongmeng world. There shouldn't be any problems with the two of you handling it." This time, the Alliance of the Righteous Path's intention was very simple. After knowing that the Dark Age had helped the Evil Path to defeat the Righteous Path warriors from the Great Thousand World, the Alliance of the Righteous Paths was prepared to support Junwuya and other forces from the Great Thousand World. To put it bluntly, the purpose of the Alliance of the Righteous Paths was very simple. It would be best if they could control the Great Thousand World in their hands. After all, the Great Thousand World had great potential. However, if they couldn't succeed, even if they had to destroy the Great Thousand World, they couldn't let the Dark Age get their hands on it. To put it bluntly, the Great Thousand World was just a chess piece in the eyes of the Alliance of the Righteous Paths and the Dark Age. Whether it was the Evil Path or the various forces in the Great Thousand World, they were all chess pieces in the game between the two camps. No matter who won or lost, the Great Thousand World would be the one to pay the price in the end. It wouldn't have much impact on the two camps. Therefore, Elder Huang simply handed the matter over to Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun, while the others in the alliance didn't have any intention of doing anything. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2477. The other world masters did not object to Elder Huang's words. After all, in their eyes, they did not care about a universe that did not even have a world master. The other world masters did not object to Elder Huang's words. After all, in their eyes, they did not care about a universe that did not even have a world master. Everyone was clear about the alliance's intention. Anyway, they could not let the Dark Age have their way. It would be best if they could protect the Great Thousand World. If they could not protect it, then they had no choice but to destroy it. However, it was not without a price for the Alliance to ask Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun to take action. They had already made an agreement when they joined the Alliance. Since the Alliance had ordered Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun to take action this time, they naturally had to give them certain benefits. Therefore, before Mu Lingxian could speak, Elder Huang had already taken the initiative to say, "This time, I will make the decision to increase the distribution of spiritual energy in the primordial world and the Great Thousand World by 10%. I will also guarantee smooth weather for the next 10 years. Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun did not object to Elder Huang's remuneration. Mu Lingxian even nodded with a smile. "All right, I will accept this." Elder Huang nodded slightly. At this point, some of the other world masters also spoke up helplessly. Hey, Elder Huang, did you gather all of us here just for such a trivial matter?" A Great Thousand World Master had actually gathered the 18 World Masters of the Alliance. Wasn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Elder Huang only smiled and did not say anything. The matter of the Great Thousand World was quickly settled. Perhaps even Junwuya and Xia Tian did not know that the battle between good and evil in the Great Thousand World had been noticed by the Origin World in the end. Of course, Junwuya and Xia Tian probably did not even know what the Origin World was. They did not even know how big the world outside the Great Thousand World was. After they were done talking, the various world lords left one after another. Very soon, the hall became lifeless again. Only the statues were still standing on the spot. After the discussion ended, Mu Lingxian slowly stood up in a moral palace. Mu Lingxian shook his head and smiled, then disappeared. In the next second, Mu Lingxian appeared on the Immortal Demon Road. He was still in the palace where Bai Tao and the others were. After Mu Lingxian appeared, Bai Tao and the others also appeared. Bai Tao and the others could be considered as members of a mortal palace now. However, Bai Tao and the others usually didn't interfere in a mortal palace's matters, and they were only responsible for guarding the origin world and the immortal devil path. Seeing Mu Lingxian appear, Bai Tao was also very puzzled. One had to know that Mu Lingxian wouldn't enter the Immortal Demon Road under normal circumstances. Without keeping Bai Tao in suspense, Bai Tao briefly explained the matter of the Alliance gathering. Upon hearing that this matter was indeed related to the Great Thousand World, a look of understanding flashed in Bai Tao's eyes. At this moment, Mu Lingxian was also looking at Lin Yun, who was cultivating in the ancestral spiritual qi. Lin Yun, who was cultivating, obviously didn't want to be disturbed. However, Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun were in a hurry to rush to the Great Thousand World. Although it wasn't far from the primordial world to the Great Thousand World, there wasn't much time to waste. Under normal circumstances, Xiaochen would need a few months to refine the ancestral spiritual qi in Di Jun's essence blood. However, Mu Lingxian obviously couldn't wait for a few months. After a slight pause, Mu Lingxian said to Di Jun, who was beside him, "You're really generous. You even gave your essence blood to this kid. I think this kid is not bad." Di Jun replied with a smile. "Forget it. I'll give him a hand. After all, I don't have so much time to waste," Mu Lingxian said faintly after hearing Di Jun's words. Then, he casually pointed and a green light entered the ancestral spiritual qi. Mu Lingxian did this to help Xiaochen refine the ancestral spiritual qi faster so that Xiaochen could come out of seclusion in the shortest time possible. After doing all this, Mu Lingxian didn't stay for long and left after saying a few words. "When this kid comes out of seclusion, tell him to come see me." He didn't know that Mu Lingxian, the world master of the Hongmeng world, had helped him. As Mu Lingxian's spirit qi entered the ancestral spiritual qi, Xiaochen found that the speed at which he absorbed and refined it was at least 10 times faster. It was as if there was a mysterious force helping him in his cultivation. It made it easier and faster for him to absorb and refine the ancestral spiritual qi. Xiaochen naturally didn't know what was happening in the outside world. At this moment, he didn't care about the sudden change. Moreover, the change didn't seem to have any effect on him, so Xiaochen slowly relaxed. With the help of Mu Lingxian, Xiaochen's cultivation speed increased by more than 10 times. After a few days, Xiaochen's body let out a muffled sound and he successfully broke through to the Emperor Realm. In just a few days, Xiaochen successfully broke through to the Emperor Realm. However, it wasn't over yet. After breaking through to the Emperor Realm, Xiaochen didn't stop cultivating because there was still a lot of ancestral spiritual qi left. It might be enough for him to break through to another minor realm. Moreover, in addition to the ancestral spiritual qi, there was still Di Jun's blood essence that Xiaochen hadn't completely absorbed. Even so, Xiaochen's physical body had improved a lot. It could be said that he had made a qualitative leap. This cultivation was definitely a great opportunity for Xiaochen. Fortunately, he didn't give up before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such great progress. Xiaochen didn't have the time to think about other things. At this moment, there was only one thing in his mind, and that was to break through again and again. With such a good opportunity, Xiaochen naturally wouldn't waste it. Moreover, the ancestral spiritual qi and Di Jun's blood essence were both good things. They were treasures that didn't exist in the Great Thousand World. I can't waste anything. With this in mind, Xiaochen naturally wasn't in a hurry to come out of seclusion. Just like this, after 10 days of Mu Lingxian's arrival, Xiaochen finally finished absorbing the ancestral spiritual qi and Di Jun's blood essence. Along with it, Xiaochen's strength had improved in all aspects. His physical body had been upgraded to the grand perfection stage of the imperishable realm. In this way, Xiaochen's tempered battle body could be said to have reached the transformation stage. His cultivation had also jumped 1.5 minor realm to the Emperor Realm minor realm. Originally, Xiaochen thought that it would be good enough to break through to the Emperor Realm this time. However, he didn't expect that he would break through to the Emperor realm in one go. Xiaochen could tell how terrifying the ancestral spiritual qi was. It was no wonder that Fan Tian and Xue Qin were so shocked when Bai Tao took out the ancestral spiritual qi. It seemed like a short seclusion, but Xiao Chen's harvest was huge. In 10 days, he broke through from the half-step Emperor realm to the Emperor realm minor realm. This was probably unimaginable in the Great Thousand World. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2478. The harvest from this time's seclusion was even greater than Xiaochen had imagined. As Xiaochen slowly opened his eyes, Bai Tao's figure appeared in front of Xiaochen. Seeing that Xiaochen's aura was much stronger than 10 days ago, Bai Tao said with a smile. The harvest from this time's seclusion was even greater than Xiaochen had imagined. As Xiaochen slowly opened his eyes, Bai Tao's figure appeared in front of Xiaochen. Seeing that Xiaochen's aura was much stronger than 10 days ago, Bai Tao said with a smile. Not bad, it seems that the harvest is not small. Thank you, senior. Hearing this, Xiaochen cupped his hands and thanked him. In response, Bai Tao waved his hand indifferently and said, well, it's a small matter. Since you've come out of seclusion, leave the immortal demon road as soon as possible. The palace master is looking for you for an urgent matter. Go and see him. Hearing that Mu Lingxian wanted to see him, Xiaochen didn't think much of it. After all, Xiaochen had obtained a lot of benefits from entering the immortal demon road this time. Seeing Mu Lingxian and thanking him was only right. After bidding farewell to Bai Tao, Xiaochen directly left the immortal demon road. With the immortal demon token on him, Xiaochen wasn't in any danger in the immortal demon road. After leaving the immortal demon road and returning to the Hongmeng world, Xiaochen immediately saw Gu Lingyao, Hong Xiu, and the others waiting outside. Seeing that Xiaochen had come out safe and sound, they all breathed a sigh of relief and approached him. Husband, are you all right? Gu Lingyao and the others were naturally worried about Xiaochen. In response, Xiaochen shook his head, indicating that he was fine. Seeing that Xiaochen was indeed unharmed, everyone was completely relieved. Then, Xianyuan Ling was the first to discover the change in Xiaochen's cultivation. At this moment, no one could see through Xiaochen's cultivation. Xianyuan Ling was pleasantly surprised. Third brother, your cultivation. Since no one could sense Xiaochen's cultivation, there was only one explanation. Xiaochen had broken through to the Emperor realm. However, how long had Xiaochen entered the immortal demon road? Less than half a month? Breaking through to the Emperor realm in half a month was too terrifying. Facing everyone's surprise, Xiaochen had no intention of hiding it. He smiled and nodded. I got some opportunities and luckily broke through. He admitted that he had indeed broken through to the Emperor realm. Hearing this, Long Qing happily patted Xiaochen's shoulder and deliberately put on the look of an elder. She praised, not bad, not bad. Little brother really didn't let second sister down. However, you just broke through to the Emperor realm. Long Qing was also happy, so she teased Xiaochen. However, just as Long Qing was about to remind Xiaochen not to be arrogant and complacent, Xiaochen curled his lips and said, Second sister, you're overthinking things. Second sister, you're overthinking things. I didn't just break through to the Emperor realm, I'm already an initial Emperor realm master. Oh, the minor accomplishment Emperor realm? That can't be. What? You're at the minor accomplishment Emperor realm? Long Qing looked at Xiaochen as if she had seen a ghost. In less than half a month, he broke through from the half-step Emperor realm to the minor accomplishment Emperor realm. My God, is this something a human can do? They thought that Xiaochen breaking through to the Emperor realm would be enough to surprise everyone, but who would have thought that not only did Xiaochen break through to the Emperor realm, but he even broke through to the minor accomplishment Emperor realm in one go. Not only Long Qing and Xianyuan Ling, but the others also looked at Xiaochen as if they had seen a ghost. My God, what kind of opportunity did you get in the immortal demon road? They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Seeing everyone's expression, Xiaochen also smiled slightly. Hey, little brother, do you think your big brother and I should also go to the Immortal Demon Road? After the shock, Long Qing was the first to react. She hugged Xiaochen's shoulder and said with shining eyes. This damn Immortal Demon Road is definitely a treasure trove. Xiaochen's cultivation broke through from the half-step Emperor Realm to the minor accomplishment Emperor Realm in half a month. Then, if we go in, even if we don't break through to the Emperor Realm, it shouldn't be a problem for us to reach the half-step Emperor Realm, right? As soon as Long Qing said this, Xian Yuanling and the others all looked expectant. Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu directly grabbed Xiaochen's shoulder and said unyieldingly, "We want to go too." Everyone was happy because of Xiaochen's breakthrough, but they also didn't want to be completely pulled apart by Xiaochen, because if that happened, they wouldn't be able to continue accompanying Xiaochen. However, in the face of everyone's request, Xiaochen said helplessly, "I don't have a problem, but I don't have the final say in the Immortal Demon Road." If the Immortal Demon Road was his, or the sword sex, Xiaochen would never refuse everyone's request. But in fact, the Immortal Demon Road had nothing to do with him at all. Moreover, if one wanted to enter the Immortal Demon Road safely, they had to have the Immortal Demon Token. Knowing how precious the Immortal Demon Token was, Xiaochen couldn't arbitrarily give it to everyone. Mu Lingxian was good to him, but Xiaochen also knew that some things couldn't be overdone, otherwise it would only embarrass everyone. After hearing Xiaochen's words, everyone didn't say anything more. In fact, they were mostly joking before. They all knew that the Immortal Demon Road wasn't a place that could be entered just because one wanted to. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiaochen timely said, "By the way, Senior Mu Lingxian asked me to go find him. You all go back to the Cloud Palace and wait for me. I'll be back soon." Remembering that Mu Lingxian was anxious to see him, Xiaochen said truthfully. Hearing this, everyone agreed very straightforwardly. After all, Xiaochen wasn't in any danger, so everyone was relieved. Then, the group left the Immortal Palace. Xiaochen explained to the elder that Mu Lingxian wanted to see him. The elder nodded and then led Xiaochen to Mu Lingxian's residence. They arrived at the entrance of Mu Lingxian's residence without any hindrance. Here, the elder didn't go any further, but politely said to Xiaochen, "Little friend Xiaochen, this old man hasn't been summoned by the palace master, so I won't go in." "Thank you, senior." Hearing this, Xiaochen cupped his hands and thanked the elder. Just as Xiaochen was about to step in, a young man came out from the entrance. However, when Xiaochen saw this young man, he was stunned. Beautiful. When Xiaochen saw this young man, his first thought was that he was beautiful. There was such a beautiful man in this world. He wasn't inferior to Qin Shuru and the other women. Although he was a man, his body was full of feminine temperament. His face was also white and flawless. Xiaochen could only think of the word beautiful to describe the young man in front of him. Xiaochen looked at the young man, and the young man also looked at Xiaochen. For some reason, under Xiaochen's gaze, the young man blushed and then shyly lowered his head. At the same time, his heart couldn't help but beat violently. What's going on? Why is my heart beating so fast? Also, who is this person? He's so handsome. It's over, it's over. I seem to have fallen in love. An indescribable throbbing arose in the young man's heart, and it couldn't be stopped. On the other side, Xiaochen noticed the young man's change and frowned slightly. At the same time, he thought to himself in confusion. Is this person crazy? The two men looked at each other. Why are you blushing? Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2479. Looking at the young man in front of him, Xiaochen was confused. This young man was a little strange. Why was he blushing when the two old men looked at each other? Xiaochen could not be bothered to say anything more to this person. He nodded and entered Mu Lingxian's cave dwelling. Looking at the young man in front of him, Xiaochen was confused. This young man was a little strange. Why was he blushing when the two old men looked at each other? Xiaochen could not be bothered to say anything more to this person. Xiaochen nodded and entered Mu Lingxian's cave dwelling. After Xiaochen entered Mu Lingxian's cave dwelling, the young man looked at the elder beside him and asked, "Who is this person?" "Young lord, this person is Xiaochen from the Great Thousand World." Hearing the young man's question, the elder respectfully replied. Since this young man could enter Mu Lingxian's cave dwelling at will, his status was naturally not low. His name was Mu Jun. He was Mu Lingxian's only son. Hearing the elder's words, Mu Jun looked in the direction of the entrance. However, Xiaochen was nowhere to be seen. At the same time, Mu Jun softly muttered, "Xiaochen, huh?" No one knew what Mu Jun was thinking. When he muttered Xiaochen's name, a faint smile appeared on his face. This smile gave off a feeling of happiness. Xiaochen did not know that Mu Jun was thinking about him. To Xiaochen, Mu Jun was a strange person. After entering the cave dwelling, a guard quickly brought Xiaochen to see Mu Lingxian. There was a simple wooden house at the foot of a beautiful mountain beside a lake. Mu Lingxian was leaning on a reclining chair in the wooden house. He must have known that Xiaochen was coming. Seeing that Xiaochen had arrived, Mu Lingxian smiled and pointed to the chair in front of him. "Have a seat." In response, Xiaochen did not immediately take a seat. Instead, he cupped his hands and bowed to Mu Lingxian before he thanked her. "Junior thanks senior." At the same time, he handed the Immortal Demon token at his waist to Mu Lingxian. In this trip to the Immortal Demon Road, Xiaochen's harvest could be said to be incomparably huge. Although this entire matter seemed to have nothing to do with Mu Lingxian, in reality, if it weren't for Mu Lingxian's nod of approval, Xiaochen naturally wouldn't have been able to obtain so many benefits. Therefore, it was not a big deal to thank Mu Lingxian. Plus, he was the world lord of a universe. However, Xiaochen clearly didn't know that Mu Lingxian had secretly helped Xiaochen. If it weren't for Mu Lingxian, Xiaochen wouldn't have come out of seclusion in just 10 days. In response to Xiaochen's thanks, Mu Lingxian smiled and didn't care much. He once again gestured for Xiaochen to take a seat. Then, Mu Lingxian spoke indifferently. "Xiaochen, this time I called you here for a reason. The battle between good and evil in the Great Thousand World has attracted the attention of some people. Therefore, people from other universes are likely to take action." He didn't tell Xiaochen about the origin world. After all, whether it was Xiaochen or the Great Thousand World, they weren't qualified to come into contact with the origin world. Mu Lingxian only said that experts from other universes were preparing to intervene in the battle between good and evil in the Great Thousand World. Hearing this, Xiaochen's expression changed slightly. Seeing this, Mu Lingxian paused for a moment and then sat up straight. His expression became more serious as he said, "There are countless universes in the universe. There are countless universes in this world. However, among these universes, there are strong and weak ones. The strong ones are like the Hongmeng world and the macro world, as well as the universes that gave birth to the world lords. As for the weak ones, they can't even give birth to life. The Great Thousand World can only be considered as a mid-low existence among these universes. However, the Great Thousand World has a complete set of rules of heaven and earth. At the same time, it has Tenzu. Therefore, it has great potential. If a world master is born in the future, it will definitely grow into a powerful universe like the Hongmeng world. It's also because of the great potential of the Great Thousand World that some universes have affirmed it. You should know that among the countless universes, not all of them are controlled by righteous warriors. In many universes, the world masters are evil warriors and demonic cultivators. Therefore, these people have set their eyes on the Great Thousand World and are preparing to intervene in the battle between good and evil in the Great Thousand World. Mu Lingxian briefly told Xiaochen what had happened. Of course, he had erased the origin world. Xiaochen's face turned grave when he heard what Mu Lingxian had said. It seemed a little difficult to deal with people from other universes interfering in the affairs of the Great Thousand World. After all, if a universe like the Hongmeng world were to intervene, the macro world would find it difficult to resist. there was no need for a world master to take action personally. Just a few ancestor realm experts under him were enough to deal with the Great Thousand World. Seeing Xiao Chen's grave expression, Mu Lingxian said, "However, you don't have to worry. I've discussed it with Lin Yun. The Hongmeng world and the macro world will also send people to the Great Thousand World to support. Therefore, the situation isn't too bad. I asked you to come this time to inform you to prepare as soon as possible and return to the Great Thousand World. The Hongmeng world and the macro world were going to help the Great Thousand World." Hearing this, Xiao Chen obviously didn't expect this. What was the purpose of these two macro worlds helping the Great Thousand World? What benefits could they gain? Xiao Chen looked at Mu Lingxian, and Mu Lingxian explained simply, "Don't think too much. I've already said that the Great Thousand World has great potential. Therefore, Lin Yun and I don't want to see the Great Thousand World become a universe controlled by evil warriors. It's that simple." The reason for this was very simple. Xiao Chen didn't stay too long at Mu Lingxian's place. In the end, Xiao Chen agreed with Mu Lingxian to leave the next day and then left the Immortal Palace. The Hongmeng world and the macro world's assistance was good news for Xiao Chen. However, in addition to the Hongmeng world and the macro world, it seemed that people from other universes had also intervened in the battle of the good and evil in the Great Thousand World. This made Xiao Chen a little depressed. With so many universes intervening in the battle of the good and evil in the Great Thousand World, it obviously made the situation more complicated. Moreover, it also made the battle more difficult to control. Unexpectedly, the battle of the good and evil in the Great Thousand World had attracted the attention of other universes. This was something that Xiao Chen didn't expect at all. However, it was fortunate that Xiao Chen had come to the Hongmeng world by chance this time. Otherwise, if he had stayed in the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chen reckoned that there was such a vast world outside the Great Thousand World, as well as so many powerful people. If he didn't know about this and the powerful people from other universes suddenly came to the Great Thousand World, the consequences would be unimaginable. This was like looking at the sky from the bottom of a well, and the consequences would definitely not be good. Xiao Chen pondered all the way back from the Immortal Palace to the Cloud Palace. In his residence, he saw Gu Ling Yao, Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others, who had returned first. Seeing Xiao Chen's thoughtful look, Long Qing asked curiously, "Little brother, what's wrong? Why do you look so sad? Did something happen?" Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2480. In the face of Long Qing's inquiry, Xiao Chen did not hide anything and told everyone what Mu Lingxian had told him. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone fell silent. In the end, it was Xiao Chen who spoke first. In the face of Long Qing's inquiry, Xiao Chen did not hide anything and told everyone what Mu Lingxian had told him. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone fell silent. In the end, it was Xiao Chen who spoke first. "Now, things are completely out of our control. From the internal affairs of the Great Thousand World, it has become a game between the other great cosmoses. There's no other way. Let's take it one step at a time." The other great cosmoses had intervened in the battle between good and evil in the Great Thousand World. Things had developed to this stage. As Xiao Chen had said, this was no longer something they could decide. Even Jun Wuya and Xia Tian could not control anything now. Hearing this, everyone nodded helplessly. However, there was also a good thing. The Great World and the Hongmeng world at least intended to help. As for the rest, they could only leave it for later. On the same day, Xiao Chen naturally went to see Lin Yun. Similarly, Lin Yun and Xiao Chen also talked about helping the Great Thousand World and agreed to set off tomorrow with Lin Yun. Just as Xiao Chen was meeting Lin Yun, on the other side, in Mu Lingxian's residence in Immortal Palace, Mu Jun found his father and spoke with a serious expression. "I also want to go to the Great Thousand World." Hearing Mu Jun's words, Mu Lingxian frowned slightly. Looking at his son who was more good-looking than a girl in front of him, Mu Lingxian said helplessly, "What are you going to do?" I like Xiaochen. It's love at first sight. Mu Jun replied without hesitation. Hearing this, Mu Lingxian spat out all the tea he had just drunk. As his own son, Mu Lingxian had naturally trained Mu Jun since he was young. Mu Jun had lived up to expectations, showing great talent for cultivation from a young age. This made Mu Lingxian very happy. However, talent was one thing. Mu Jun had one thing that gave Mu Lingxian a headache, and that was his sexual orientation. To put it bluntly, this Mu Jun was a homosexual. Mu Lingxian had thought of many ways to deal with this matter, but none of them worked. She had even arranged a marriage for Mu Jun, but it was ruined by this brat in the end. Hearing Mu Jun say that he liked Xiaochen, Mu Lingxian's mood could be imagined. The corner of his mouth twitched, and then he coldly spat out a word, scram. Mu Lingxian never thought that he, the dignified world lord of a universe, would have a son who had the same interests as Xiaochen. It was simply too much. He didn't know that he had been remembered. Early the next morning, Xiaochen and the others arrived at the main square of the Immoral Palace early. Yesterday, they had agreed with Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun that they would leave for the Great Thousand World today. They arrived at the Immoral Palace with the people of the Cloud Palace. This time, Lin Yun didn't arrange many people to go to the Great Thousand World, only a few people, including Lin Yun's daughters, Lin Feng and Lin Shui. Of course, these two brats took the initiative to ask to go to the Great Thousand World. After all, young people were indeed full of curiosity about the unknown world. After thinking about it, Lin Yun didn't refuse and agreed. In addition to Lin Feng and Lin Shui, there were two palace masters of the 9 palaces above the clouds, Lin Hu and Lin Yuan. Xiaochen wasn't familiar with these two people. When everyone arrived at the main square of the Immoral Palace, Gong Nan Tian and another palace master of the Immoral Palace also arrived quickly. The two of them were also accompanying Xiaochen to the Great Thousand World this time. Xiaochen knew Gong Nan Tian, and the beautiful woman who came with Gong Nan Tian was called Yuluo, and she was also an ancestor. This time, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian had obviously discussed about supporting the Great Thousand World. The Immoral Palace and the Cloud Palace each sent 2 ancestors, a total of 4 people. Although there weren't many people, their strength was enough to advance. With the overall strength of the Great Thousand World, 4 ancestors were enough to sweep everything. On the side of the Immoral Palace, in addition to Gong Nan Tian and Yuluo, there was another person. It was the young master of the Immoral Palace, Mu Jun. Seeing this young man again, who was more beautiful than a woman, Xiaochen didn't know why, but he felt his scalp tingle. Because after everyone appeared one after another and greeted him one after another, Mu Jun's eyes never left him, and his expression was very strange, which made Xiaochen feel puzzled. Being stared at by someone was naturally not a good feeling. At this time, Lin Feng whispered to Xiaochen. "Brother Xiaochen, this guy is called Mu Jun, the young master of the Immoral Palace, the only son of Mu Lingxian, but why do I feel that he is looking at you like he is no match for you?" Lin Feng's character was good, and he was the kind of person who liked to be familiar with people. Hearing this, Xiaochen shook his head helplessly, thinking, I can also see that something is wrong, but what can I do? Is there something wrong with my face? Xiaochen had thought that Mu Jun was crazy from the very beginning. Lin Shui, who was standing beside him, also chimed in when she heard her brother's words. That's right. The way he looks at brother Xiaochen is a little strange. Love? Love my ass. How can 2 grown men love each other? Xiaochen was speechless, but as the 3 of them were talking, Mu Jun also walked up to them. Mu Jun naturally knew Lin Feng and Lin Shui, but at this time, he directly ignored them and stared at Xiaochen. Just as the 3 of them were feeling depressed, Mu Jun finally spoke, looking at Xiaochen and saying in a clear voice, Xiaochen, I like you, the kind of love at first sight. Hearing Mu Jun's words, Lin Feng and Lin Shui immediately looked like they wanted to vomit blood. What was going on? Mu Jun's confession came so suddenly that it caught them off guard, and they weren't prepared for it at all. Along with Mu Jun's words, Xiaochen's expression changed, and Gu Lingshue's and the other 2's faces sank. This guy likes my husband? Knowing Mu Jun's identity, even though Xiaochen felt helpless, he still forced himself to explain, Brother Mu Jun, I'm a man. Is this guy blind? 2 men and you want to play love with me? But after hearing Xiaochen's words, Mu Jun said with a serious face. I know, but who said there can't be love between men? Xiaochen, I like you. Also, don't call me brother, you can call me darling, wife, madam, anything is fine. PFFF. PFFF. After hearing Mu Jun's words, Xiaochen suddenly felt like vomiting blood. Darling? Wife? Madam? Big brother, are you sure you're serious? Looking at Mu Jun in front of him, Xiaochen finally understood that this young master of a moral palace was actually gay. While Xiaochen was speechless, on the other side, Gong Nantian and Yu Luo, who were talking to Lin Hu and Lin Yuan, also looked embarrassed. Seeing Lin Hu and Lin Yuan looking at Mu Jun, Gong Nantian laughed out loud. Ha, that's just a joke, a joke. My young master likes to joke, don't take it to heart. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2481. As the young master of a moral palace and Mu Lingxian's only son, Mu Jun's every move could be said to represent the entire immoral palace in his father's face. Gong Nantian felt humiliated when he heard Mu Jun confessing to Xiaochen so openly. As the young master of a moral palace and Mu Lingxian's only son, Mu Jun's every move could be said to represent the entire immoral palace in his father's face. Gong Nantian felt humiliated when he heard Mu Jun confessing to Xiaochen so openly. At the same time, Gu Lingyao shouted angrily at Mu Jun, go away. My husband will like you. You're a grown man. Don't you know shame by saying such things? Tui. Gu Lingyao couldn't care less about that. Besides, this matter was related to Xiaochen, so she couldn't hold it in any longer. Tui. You bitch. How dare you try to steal my husband from me? Get lost. Gu Lingyao stood in front of Xiaochen and stared at Mu Jun. She was like an old hen protecting her chicks, standing in front of Xiaochen and staring at Mu Jun. Xiaochen was speechless at Gu Lingyao's reaction. Lingyao, you didn't expect your love rival to be a man one day, did you? Mu Jun didn't back down after hearing Gu Lingyao's words. Sister, have you heard of the saying? What saying? True love is between the same sex. So, you can step aside now. I will take good care of Xiaochen in the future. I will make him, true love is between the same sex. Who the F***ck said that? Are you listening to a human? However, before Mu Jun could finish speaking, Gong Nantian had appeared behind Mu Jun and covered his mouth. Then, he said to everyone with an embarrassed smile, it's fine. Ha, young master drank too much last night. Don't take his words to heart. It's almost time. Let's set off as soon as possible. As he spoke, Gong Nantian pulled Mu Jun away without any explanation. What a joke, if this fellow said a few more words, then Immortal Palace's face would be completely lost. The glorious Immortal Palace young master was actually gay. If news of this got out, who would be in trouble? Mu Jun could only whimper. Naturally, Mu Jun had no power to fight back against Gong Nantian. He could only look at Xiaochen unwillingly. However, his eyes seemed to be saying, baby Xiaochen, wait for me. I will come for you again. Seeing Mu Jun being dragged away by Gong Nantian, Xiaochen was speechless. Everyone boarded the spatial spirit boat together. On this trip to the Great Thousand World, Xiaochen and the others did not take their own spatial spirit boat. Instead, they took Immortal Palace's spatial spirit boat. The spatial spirit boat provided by the Immortal Palace was much larger than Xiaochen's spatial spirit boat, and its speed was also much faster. It was also much stronger in other aspects. Everyone boarded the spatial spirit boat, while Mu Jun was locked in a room by Gong Nantian. Don't come out and make a fool of yourself. It's simply too embarrassing. they directly set off for the Great Thousand World. As for Lin Yun and Mu Ling Xian, they did not show up at all. What a joke, a Great Thousand World did not know that the World Master had taken action. Xiao Qin and the others embarked on the journey back to the Great Thousand World. On the other side, the war in the Great Thousand World was still ongoing. Although the Great Thousand World side had taken down Leaping Tiger City and Tomb City, the Evil Path side was still very strong and had been entangled with the Great Thousand World. The battle was still difficult to determine the winner, and the casualties on both sides were getting more and more serious. However, on this day, the Evil God Palace attracted a group of uninvited guests. This group of people came from outside the Great Thousand World. They were from another universe who planned to intervene in the war between the good and evil in the Great Thousand World. There were a total of 7 people in the group, and the 3 leaders were all Ancestor Realm Masters. The other 4 were all Emperor Realm Masters. They all came from a universe called the Great Demon World. The force in the depths was called the Demon Abyss, and its sect master was the World Master of the Great Demon World. The Great Demon World was a universe controlled by demon cultivators. In the Great Demon World, demon cultivators were the masters, and righteous path cultivators were existences that everyone hated. The 3 leaders were 2 men and 1 woman. The 2 men were called Mo He and Mo Chi, and the woman was called He Yan. The 3 of them were all Ancestor Realm Masters. When the 3 of them had just arrived in the Great Thousand World and appeared in the Evil God Palace, Xia Tian had overestimated himself and attacked. However, the result was obvious. He was directly suppressed by Mo Chi. At this time, in the main hall of the Evil God Palace, Missouri he and the other 2 were sitting on the main seats, while Xia Tian, evil spirits, and the other evil sovereigns of the Evil God Palace were respectfully standing on the lower seats. They had already learned about the outside universe from Mo He and also understood that the Great Thousand World was just one of the many universes. After learning this fact, Xia Tian and the others didn't know how to describe their feelings. After all these years, they had thought that their horizons had broadened, but who would have thought that they were still frogs in a well? The Great Thousand World was only one of the tens of thousands of universes, and it was considered one of the weaker universes. It couldn't compare to the Great Demon World at all. Especially after seeing the strength of Herculean Mo's group, Xia Tian couldn't resist at all. He was a little nervous in his heart, but at this time, Mo He who was sitting in the middle spoke in a calm voice. This Great Thousand World is really weak. It is indeed very weak, but as Sect Master said, it has great potential. Moreover, this is Ji Yuan's order, so we can't ignore it. He Yan on the side spoke in a calm voice. Of the 3 of them, Mo He was clearly the one in charge and he was the strongest. He was on the same level as Lin Yuan and Gong Nantian, being in the Ancestor Realm Perfection Realm. Hearing He Yang's words, Mo He gave a slight nod, acknowledging his words. Then his eyes slowly swept over Xia Tian's group. Faced with Mo He's gaze, Xia Tian's group felt like they were being dragged into hell and their backs couldn't help being covered in cold sweat. As demonic cultivators, the feeling Mo He and the others gave people was completely different from Gong Nantian's group. They had the same cultivation, but Mo He and the others weren't as approachable as Gong Nantian's group. Cold, dark, and terrifying, this was the first feeling Mo He and the others gave Xia Tian's group. His eyes swept over Xia Tian and the others. Finally, under the pale faces of Xia Tian and the others, Mo He slowly spoke. This one's intention is very simple, to help you end this so-called war between good and evil and allow your Evil God Palace to truly rule the Great Thousand World. Mo He calmly spoke. Hearing this, Xia Tian was stunned and looked at Mo He in disbelief. Xia Tian naturally didn't doubt the strength of Mo He and the others. If Mo He and the others really wanted to help him, there was no need to doubt it. The Great Thousand World couldn't stop them. He was a little excited, but at the same time, he was a little doubtful. For people like Mo He and the others to suddenly come to the Great Thousand World and help the Evil God Palace, it was impossible for them to not have a goal. However, what could the 3 of them fancy in the Great Thousand World? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.